let me first begin by thanking Patrick for all his hard work on this.
Absolutely.
I'll second that.
Yes, third, fourth.
And I also want to thank all the department heads and electeds for coming in on Saturday. As I've said before, one of my observations was in the past, not all of the council members were attending all of the work sessions before, and this is a critical component to our responsibility. So thank you. And an additional thanks, I'm going to ask Scott to tell his little guy because it's his birthday weekend. So thank you for...
Now it falls every year. It's now it's a tradition.
I told you I would have brought cake if...
Donuts to go, Scott, I mentioned that earlier.
All right.
Up until he's 21.
So next year it's got to be on the third weekend.
We've got a succession.
All right. I'll kick it over to you, Scott.
Alrighty. I mean, I know that Pat's published, continue going, consolidated sewer, base sewer, consolidated water, base water, then water and sewer admin. I mean, really, I guess just a little narrative, I guess across all of them, is that it's pretty much in line with historical budgets, with the one exception that this year there's much more cash that was, historically accumulated that's been now set and allocated towards some of the capital improvement process. So it's been pulled in there. You'll see capital transfers, line items in there that may have not been there before, within especially consolidated water and consolidated sewer. And then also have a couple other projects. Base manholes are also funded within here. That was a 2-year project which just was awarded and went out to bid to be a 2-year project. So the second half of the budget is within this 2018. Meter management, which was outlined in the capital plan, is still, which was identified to come out of the operating budget also, that's funded still. Also we have software, billing software, and pictometry is supported in here above and beyond some of the historical things. As well as we also have funded some lift station tank rehabs, and then equipment, really back truck or dump truck are kind of our 2 higher vehicles. So each year we kind of write out each year and see kind of where we are and whether we got to make a move to one or the other. So we kind of budget in the middle where we kind of need those funds. So that line item's been funded to potentially take care of a dump truck or a back truck or to support a good chunk of that allocation. So I guess we'll start with the consolidated sewer. I don't know if you guys just want to go through it, ask questions. Within consolidated sewer, again, like I said, the base manholes, or not base manholes, are not in here. It's a portion of the lift stations, which would be Bluff Point and Trade Road, are within here.
So the Cumberland headquarters, one allowing 2,000 this year is just maintenance. 43,890 so far we use this year.
That's right now.
74,700 from 2016.
The revenue you're talking about?
No,
No,
okay.
just below the revenue.
Okay.
Is that
Yes.
insurance claim?
It's on page 1.
That's our insurance claim against Route 9, is why that
Yeah.
line item was created.
That's why it bumped up, because we had a failure there.
Right.
And we have been doing the pump around, and they're actually going to work on that now, right?
Yeah.
But we're only allowing 2,000, so that's,
Yeah, that's a new one. Normally it's 2,000. Scott wants to have in there just for that. It's just
normally a
bumped up because we
miscellaneous
had
account.
emergency repair.
yeah.
Yeah, historically it's been a miscellaneous account.
Right.
When we want the line item allocate for all the expenses for that, because we had an insurance claim against it, so we wanted to keep them all together. So we kind of captured that miscellaneous line item and took it over as Route 9
Okay.
pump station failure, so we could get all of
Yeah,
our
because we had
expenses in one
so much
spot.
problem.
And then we're going to get some reimbursement, which we still need to complete that project to get the remaining funds of like, I think, 47,000 out of it.
So normally that's at 2,000
Yeah.
in the past history.
I've been pleased with the work that they're doing on that project so far.
Yeah, no, it's moving along, and really the pump packages along the line, and that's kind of what we're waiting on.
Under sanitary sewer, third one down, sludge disposal.
Yep. Yeah, sludge disposal, we had a big shipment this year, it probably accumulated over the last couple of years. And one of the things is that we shifted disposal facilities. So we had to work through profiles going to Franklin County. And actually historically, before we took a couple of years to accumulate what's going to Clinton County.
So we expect it to be less this year than it was last year.
Yep. I guess one comment just is that, you know, within here is what we pay to the city
Thank you.
for our sewer disposal to the city. You know, that contract is in place. I think it goes to 2039. But we are on the upswing side, you know, because there was a start here, we kind of dipped, and then we came on the, you know, increase side, so we're on the increase side. So it's marginal increase every year, but it is an increase side. Which then we evaluate our rates a lot of times for the sewer, again, for the city sewer.
But you're still projecting you'll be less than what you were back in 2015?
Yep.
Yeah. Is that primarily due to the correcting infiltration issues?
It's a lot of the infiltration, and also, as we go around and modify some of our pump stations, we are gaining efficiencies just because that pump used to be, you know, rated this, and it's degraded over time, so we're gaining some efficiencies just in updating our equipment, more accurately being able to monitor what goes through the city. And I think even, you know, one of the interesting things is a lot of times, I guess even as our relationship kind of grows with the city and working through these, I know in the past, you know, we would just get hit with, like, say, for example, I-9, we might have a pump out because it failed, and the city shows up and reads those hours, and they just keep billing us, and then they, instead of calling and saying, hey, is that pump out, why isn't it running, what's going on? We at least have that in place now, and we kind of go back and forth a little bit more than we probably have, you know, historically, so some of those things aren't assumed up front. You know, they would have said, hey, let's set it to the average that we applied, you know, 3 years ago type of thing, and over that period where it was down, so. A lot of that stuff's been cleared up, so
Yeah.
we, a lot more communication.
Don't tell them very much difference.
Yeah, I know.
You usually have a lot of study activity in the lab analysis line, Scott, so you're
Yep.
just going to keep that the same?
Yep, yeah, and the lab analysis is really to pay for Katyville treatment plant, for the wastewater analysis there, which we still have, we have a speedies permit that exists there, so that's in the consolidated district, so that's for that allocation as well.
Anything else here?
Base sewer. Base sewer, like I said, the base manholes are in the equipment capital outlay at $255, which was the same amount from previous year. And then, like I said, we did that over 2 years, it came in at, to be broken up over 2 years, so. Right now, we're thinking that the work might be completed this year, but then the contractor will just bill us over a 2-part, which is kind of an interesting way to, this is the first time that we kind of driven payment plans, kind of payment options within the bid document, so I think it's, you know, something we could.
So that helps us quite a bit then.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah, it definitely helps us kind of align some of our work to the budget, you know, the cash flow that we have, so. I think we'll look for those type of opportunities, especially with the lining type of scenarios, and, which are kind of lump sum, or, like unit pricing a lot of times, so a lot of times we'll extend those just based on how aggressive pricing.
All the main ones are already lined, right?
Yep, all the base is done. Really, once we get the manholes, which will be done this year, we may have some carry into 2018. So all the actual piping and manholes will be resolved from I&I, and then now the plan is to go after the Connecticut Bluff Point lift station consolidation, and
That'll be for next year?
yep, and that's in the plans for next year also.
Oh, good. So
Yep.
we're in good shape there for
Yeah.
I&I and stuff.
Yep, no, that's been a good story. So. A good reduction there, both in electrical usage, wear and tear on the pumps, you know, and then also kind of discharges to the city.
Good?
but not much else going on in base sewer. Base water. There's probably less going on in base water. Really, base water, the big kind of item that's been identified for base water and the capital plan has been the replacement of the water lines. You know, we still continue to kind
Are you
of.
on base or consolidated?
He went to base water.
Sorry, I
Yeah.
I was gonna stay.
You're on, this is
No,
consolidated.
I am.
Okay.
So let's stay on consolidated water. I'll say that.
Are we going consolidated?
Yeah, we're staying.
Consolidated water.
Yeah, sorry, consolidated. I'm just trying to move this along.
What are we doing? We're going back?
Consolidated water.
Consolidated water.
There you go. I was trying to stay with the agenda and I just.
It's okay.
It's okay, we're moving fast. We're
Lucky.
already-
Yeah, exactly.
Lucky.
Water, sewer, and here. So consolidated water, there's a lot going on in consolidated water. We have next year's tank rehab payment that was done over 3 years with Suez. So this year we made payments against the 3 tanks that we're doing this year. Next year it'll be payments against 4, it'll be 3, 5, possibly the 6 tank. Depends on Kimberly how that will fold in with the new 2 million gallon storage tank. But that's also, that's incorporated in here, as well as the tank rehab of the others, another new 2 million gallon. So it's mostly tank storage that's been allocated in the capital plan in here.
So that's a new van that we're gonna have for transfer?
No, we don't plan to go, right now, we're doing that out of the cash
Okay.
surplus, whatever reserve we want to take that, I know that was used it. But that chunk of money. And we anticipate really looking at the capital plan and kind of the shifting through the 3 years or 4-year plan, is that we're looking at probably 2019, potentially having to, borrow some money, but, as we drop our debt and look at,
Right.
and some,
We'll probably end up borrowing money in 18, but not start paying.
yeah,
till
payment.
2019.
So then we'll just start.
And again, this is where we're continuing to do the things where we're going through exercises to identify possible funds. So, we're gonna be doing the income survey going into next year and a number of other things, so that may set us up for some other stuff. So, New York State in particular has been really kind of reworking its value of water systems, et cetera. So we're trying to put, ourselves into that quote-unquote pipeline. And then we're having ongoing conversations with the federal government and some of our partners to look at, infrastructure at the old Air Force Base, et cetera. So.
Is there a cell antenna revenue going up? Are we adding new customers or increasing the rates?
Customer stays the same. I think as part of those agreements, there is an incremental increase each year, and that's what's accounted for within this.
3 or 4%.
Yeah. And we still have
We
2 on Hammond, 1 on Bluff. It's AT&T and Verizon are our 2. They continue to kind of, most of the upgrades they make are mostly really antenna heads, so they can continue to push out more and more. It's actually, if you look at Hammond Lane, it's interesting that, they kind of point everything at the college, because, all those kids show up with all their phones and really bog the area down, so that the heads are much more lenient towards aiming towards the college than it is pointing at Saranac. But it's kind of obvious when you look at it. That 3 simple heads on one side and the other one's a big cluster.
Page 1 in the bottom, electricity, that is 170, it seems to be quite different each year.
Yeah, electricity is an interesting one to try to budget for. Yeah, and that was a number, we looked at it, it does vary year to year, but I'd go back over the course of many years to kind of put that number, because we've had some high years and some low years, and it depends on production. Some of it is efficiencies that we're gaining just in our own activities with, putting in VFDs and the capital improvements that we're making, so there's some accomplishments there, but it's also driven by production the following year, whether it's a dry year or a wet year, and those things all drive our production numbers, which and really, a lot of our electricity allocation, the big numbers are really pumping, moving water around. So it's pumping it out of the wells, and pumping it up to Kimberly Lane, where those costs come from.
Let's see.
Lab analysis is in here, but this is for our ongoing DOH compliance that we have to do, whether it be lead, copper, disinfection byproducts, routine bacterial samples.
And you think that's enough, 10?
Yeah, we kind of run in that range. Some years they cycle, so you might have to do some sampling every 3 years, so, there's kind of, some of that's kind of comes and goes, but overall, I think we're in a good range where we're just budgeted at. That's accounted for. And then occasionally we get new requests that come along, or new requirements, or various other things,
Under the water meters,
Yeah,
are
just gonna do that.
we still installing new ones?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, we're still going, and will kind of be an ongoing thing. But really the 150 has been allocated in there historically. And it's kind of a good, have one individual now that's kind of taken quite a bit of ownership of the meter program. And so we've kind of done, in terms of our prioritization, we kind of went after things we couldn't read and high consumption people that we wanted to make sure we're getting everything. And now we're at a point where we're actually trying to convert whole sections of town over. So when we go in there, we can gain the efficiencies of having radio read meters in there and get it data collection very quickly versus going up and touching, old readers. So we've now condensed that, worked with the meter company also to kind of graphically lay some of these areas out that we need to concentrate on. So we're going into, let's get all of Walls Hill, let's get all of Cumberland Head, let's get all of Cliff Haven converted, so when we go in there and read, we can just do it all at once.
So this is about a 5-year program, right?
Yeah, and then we'll probably, like I said, once we get to the end, we'll probably start over.
As you can start over. You know how many of the old meters you have left to,
There's still a few out there that, and one of the challenges we have is, a lot of times we'll go in and identify something, especially the ones that have the really old meters. Usually there are some less than standard plumbing in the home, and then we aren't responsible for the plumbing, the homeowner's responsible for the plumbing, and then trying to drive them to make a financial commitment to change out so we can get a meter in there. So we work with them with letters and kind of going back and forth, and but those are some of the more challenging ones to get into. I wouldn't say we have too many of those left, old meters. There's like 4-digit ones that we had out there, or manufacturers that we no longer can read, so most of those are out of the
Okay.
system.
Is there any possibility that there's any grant money
yeah.
that's available to
Metering is,
move some of that?
metering comes with, usually with the grant itself, because they want to say, like when we got Scudder Falls, part of that grant was to do metering as part of it. So a lot of times when you expand or grow, that's when they say, hey, include metering as part of your project, because they want you to track your metering. Meter maintenance isn't necessarily funded real well. It's kind of that new, hey, we got this new district we're going to push out into if we need a meter. That's where the grant money typically is with meters. And then the other thing is that a lot of people will try to, because these are your cash registers, and depending on how much you're missing, and this is one of the, we've looked at this with a couple of groups now, is that, whether you borrow money up front, because you're going to get that money back. And we've looked at that based on some of our leak rates and things like that, that return on investment isn't as high as you may think. So that's probably why we're going with a little more of a phased approach and putting in meters.
I guess I was coming at it more from the standpoint of, we have issues, if they've got old piping,
Oh, for the individual to get a conversion.
Yeah.
I think it almost have to be, there's activities, and it depends, it's more driven by probably income level, where I
Yeah.
see support.
Absolutely.
For those type of things. So we do offer that to our customers. We have a sheet that lists out the local agencies, depending on your circumstances, that you can reach out to, whether it be even paying your water bill. We kind of have a list, and we use that for some of these plumbing changeover individuals when we get in there and say, hey, here are some options for you.
Yeah.
And then I'd say for total, I know that the state had offered that you can get they were gonna sample anybody's water that show up for lead. So you may have, through that channel, you may have been able to get to something for your private plumbing.
Right.
If you showed high levels and you could work through those channels, there may have been some options there.
Those were the kind of things I was talking about.
Okay.
JCEO, I think,
Yep.
that's tied into some of
Yep,
those.
yeah, and we have used them. And they've done a few improvements for a few individuals.
The bond principal and interest have gone down quite a bit.
Yeah, we paid off quite a few. like
Maturity.
four bonds
Yeah.
that
Yep.
matured in 2017. Our next, we'll have another one in 2018, and then 2021 is our next one we'll have maturing.
And that's part of the basis of our capital plan too, is there's that, you know,
So
kind
that
of
drops off, and then we
Yes.
can take on more debt.
Fines and-
And not affect the taxpayer.
keep our tax rates reasonable. So now we're base water. The big piece there is the water mains, the base are all, were inherited in a expired state. US government.
Well, the federal government always uses the best products. Right, Jim?
That's right.
Exactly.
Our taxpayers' dollars at work.
So, like as we were kind of getting into, that we're pursuing through some channels, some funding options there. And that's kind of where it's at. You know, it's an interesting thing because really the base was kind of split up, you know, county, city, town, and we all kind of had the same woes. You know, the county kind of gets supported because they have the airport, and so FAA funds become available to them, so they make their improvements. And then also the governor's not taking an interest in the airport, and so there's funds there. So I think we have a great story to say, hey, you know, does it make sense to stick all this money into an airport and then have it surrounded by developed infrastructure that, you know, hotels, restaurants that you want to bring to town, and then you're gonna have, you know, kind of water systems that are either constantly can't handle the pressure or the volumes, or the, you know, fire suppression is an issue, and then you're gonna stick, you know, more infrastructure in there. So I think there's a good story there, and it's just kind of getting it out there. And
Well, and that was part of the decision by Harry McManus to provide ad hoc seats for both myself and Colin on the airport committee, because there's a common thread, okay? Obviously, the airport's in the town, but then there's some parcels next to it that they're looking to do some development of a potential hotel, but the city may not be able to provide the water, so the town would have to, so everything's kind of jigsawed together there, but as we continue to potentially chase some federal funds, hopefully it'll be a win for, you know, all of them, or all of
because I
us.
think like the city is budgeting, they're going after Maine, which was a big issue for them within the last couple of years. So I know they've pulled that into this year's infrastructure budget for them to go after. So, but I mean, for us, the success has been pressure management, but it's fire suppression and things like that out there that make the base unreliable.
Top of page one, so 425,216, budget 167, for real property revenue.
Yep. And that's as the bands, the debt got paid off. in the base. So really now it's just operating. It's a big percentage of it is operating budget, not debt there, so real property is really your debt allocation. So as the debt reduces, that line item reduces as a revenue line item.
Anything else? All right.
All right, water and sewer admin, the catch-all. Within this is a lot of our overhead items. You know, and a lot of times on that first line item with inspection and connection fees, it's a hard one to budget. It's all over the place. It's driven by who shows up and asks for permits, the size of the water lines they ask for, all those kind of things, how many penalties we take in. So it's a hard one to really budget, so it typically gets budgeted on the low side just because it is an unknown. So we lean towards the lower side of the budget. But you can see it's been anywhere from, you know, 90,000, 70,000 to 60. So it's really driven by activity in the town, which is inspection fees. You know, we gotta go out and look at it, and depending on the size of the project, if it has multiple inspections, I mean, you know, there's more revenue there, so. Also within this is our O&M agreements. Those are kind of roughly gone up about, I think, 1 to 2% each year, as really our budget goes up in overhead and, you know, whether it be salary, insurances, they go up, that those are brought into that line item. Because, really those O&M agreements are a lot of labor support, but it's also sampling and monitoring and DOH compliance and issuance of boil waters and all that good stuff, so. But those are also being discussed as we move through the capital plan too, as they kind of, how best should they contribute and all that stuff. And we're looking at also how to, maybe allocate funding between all the districts and groups and outside users, so that they're fairly contributing across, because a lot of those evolved over time. We're all kind of a little bit different, and I think we've learned along the way. So I think there's going to be an opportunity to kind of get these all even at some point, and get them all under one contract. So.
The contracts only come up at certain particular times, so.
Yeah, well, we have to tell them at the, going into budget period what their rates are gonna be, but really those contracts are written to be broken upon agreement between both parties. So we have to give them advance notice, say, hey, we wanna terminate this agreement.
It's a 1 year notice, I thought, isn't it?
Yep, renegotiate another one, so, we gotta.
But there's some changes in leadership that are obviously occurring. Let's take Beekman Town.
Yeah.
So there's an opportunity to bring in the new supervisor and the board and have some conversations, about a number of things. So it's, making sure things don't fall through the cracks. And maybe next year's not the appropriate year because, first year person's coming in, but we're trying to think about those things.
But your meetings that you have with your supervisors, I think certainly is a good forum.
Oh, yeah,
That
absolutely.
new supervisor comes aboard, that'll be a great conversation. Scott, but somewhat budget related, do you anticipate any new compliance initiatives? I know you don't have a crystal ball for this, but do you see anything?
No, the only one I envision is on the sewer side, as the city's Speedies permit they're going through renewal right now, they're actually in negotiations with DC. That thing's been slated for renewal probably for the last 15 years, but the way DC did Speedies permits, they prioritize them and then they eventually get up there, and so the city's is up there. And within that is a mercury limit, so we, eventually I see us having to possibly sample some mercury requirements. They may not be this year, they could be next year, but it kind of depends on how this permit gets negotiated. So I've been working with Dave, I got draft permits of those, we've been looking at that stuff. We'll have to go out and inspect the dentist office because of mercury-based fillings and amalgamation systems that are required to keep mercury out of the sewer system. So, as a result of their permit being modified, that then drives an obligation for us to make sure that it's being complied with on their side. The city will start to look for mercury sources, and if they find that there are elevated levels, they'll start to say, hey, where's that coming from? And then they'll probably have to sample it, town city lines. We'll probably have to pick some points to sample also, and then start to figure out if we have higher levels or where we kind of stand. And then part of that is also inspecting the dental offices, which we have quite a few.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
do.
we have
We have to.
most.
Yeah.
Not all, but most.
Historically, we've had to track them from equipment in the offices, but now this will be going out and doing physical inspections,
Okay.
where we haven't had to do that in the past. It's mostly been paper in the past that we've had.
Well, that's helpful information. When I'm going through the vouchers in the audit committee,
Yep.
those kinds of answers are helpful. So when I'm like, oh, what's this?
Yeah.
Mercury testing, so.
Yep.
Just planning
Like
ahead, that's all.
last year we got into a little bit of the, PFOA stuff, as a result of it, and stuff, so we seen some sources and things, so. So those are kind of, and I know,
Do you see much similar kinds of impact with North Titanium and some of the, sister organizations that are coming into town?
the Norsk operations themselves, they're not a huge wastewater discharge concern, but some of their sister companies could possibly be, depending on how much polishing and grinding and how they're freeing up metal flakes into the system and things like that. We'll have concerns as some of those operations come in, but they have not really gotten to that point. And actually, I just, probably 2 months ago, Norsk, the titanium facility that is the R&D facility that they're in, they just brought in a small polishing kind of research operation that I went and inspected the other day and made sure that it was in line with the permit and that they're filling out the permit and all that good stuff. So, but it's really kind of getting to the large scale stuff, which, those conversations have really died off.
Yeah.
So we were initially engaged, but, right now they don't appear, really I think their big concern is constant electricity. And we don't have too many concerns about actual Norsk operations. It's probably those satellites that show up that get into processing these metal pieces in the future.
But North kind of initially not properly filled out the
Correct.
permits,
Yes,
right?
no, they were all over, and they were trying to do both satisfy the large scale and the production with the research, and, but now we've kind of met with all of them, and, you know, and really Matt's kind of main point of contact locally now, and so he's been kind of heading up the research facility and getting that going and operating. And I think one of the things they're gonna have to, that we're kind of working with them, is that they're starting to have a shift to production at the research facility, and you can claim a lot of exemptions when you waive the research flag, from whether it be air permits and various other things, and then when you go into production, then that's when, you know, regulatory agencies really want you to show how you're complying with things. So they may have a little bit of transition as a result of switching to production in that facility, not being able to go across the street.
If they move, you know, as the plan called for, to the old airport, you know, see impact going to be on Route 3, on the sewer.
Well, that's part of what the study that we looked at was looking at those options. We've laid those options out. You know, there's a little bit that's going to Ruger, going to 3, it's kind of splitting that up, so you're going into the city on both main trunks into the city, so it'd be kind of, some could go up the Route 3 side, some can go down the Ruger side, so that's kind of how that's been proposed. But they've also been talking with, you know, TDC and the county, and this is how everyone kind of envisions this chunk of property getting developed, and, you know, utilities is a major conversation of that. So we have some planning that's been done that we're trying to align to, at least share and communicate, so.
The county's having some larger conversations about how that property gets developed, particularly through the lens of infrastructure, as Scott said, which is actually very refreshing, you know, that they understand that there's some certain things that they're gonna need to do if they're gonna make a go of that, so.
Yeah. So right now, there's a couple
There's
different
a
options. that
limit
we
to
have
what
laid
you
out.
can take down
Yep.
Ruger Street.
Yep, no, exactly, and that's one of the things we identified, that, you know, depending on how much and how much activity, and then even as you see, you know, whether, you know, with the farm there, the property gets developed, and then even Reeves Lane, you know, there's a lot of property in there that still could yet be developed, by Ruger too, so, you know, it's a kind of commercial corridor, so we anticipate growth there.
Those, like Michael said, are conversations that are actually being had now, whereas opposed to a couple of years ago was not.
Yeah, no, at least, you know, at least when they start going off and planning, they're inviting us to the table to talk about infrastructure,
Yeah,
which is a big step.
That's why I said refreshing, I mean, it's been pretty positive, so.
I guess if everybody's good with revenues, then it gets into expenses, which really we have one vacancy, which was historically filled, and I'd like to fill it this year. And then there was another vacancy on paper that has been eliminated from the budget. So that's kind of where the staffing lies. We got a pretty good group in-house now, kind of working well together, pretty good, you know, more of a team atmosphere.
If anybody that's handling
GIS, no, we're working with the planning department, it's kind of where we're trying to work with Melena, she kind of comes on board and Trevor switches over. So I got one individual that kind of has enough wherewithal to kind of work with Melena to kind of get some cross training, and, you know, it doesn't need to be a full GIS person, but he needs to be able to go in there and tweak things, and, because a lot of our stuff is kind of keeping it up to date versus going out and collecting all the data anymore, so.
Yeah, I remember that was one of the things that were
Yep, no,
were lacking.
and GIS is, so we kind of leaning on, you know, Trevor's group to help us out. And then really you know, kind of with Melena on board, we're starting to do some cross-training with our own staff, so that's kind of the plan right now.
Good.
It'd be good to have a backup.
Yep, you know, and then also as we move forward, so say we do a project, you know, we're trying to get some of that as GIS information too, as we pull in, so we can just bring it into the system instead of, you know, having our person going and manipulate pull together.
You know, one of the things, I know you know that it's from the more, but I think it's worth stating again is, every morning I do rounds with the department heads, and you can very easily see how the departments are coordinating efforts with one another, and, you know, that they're kind of cross-pollinating everything from pictometry to GIS to a number of other things. And so I applaud Scott for, you know, if he doesn't necessarily have, you know, all the resources at hand, he finds them internally somehow, and vice versa, some of the other departments, so.
Yeah, we see that in some of the monthly reports, Scott, where
Yeah.
the bullet will be like, shared service internally. that they're showing.
Yeah, I try to highlight those on the board report so you guys can kind of see how we're working together.
Appreciate
It's a
all.
very hot topic.
So it's kudos to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott, overall, your budget is down due
I'd
to,
say it's, if you take out the reserve, the stuff coming in for the capital plan, it probably stayed flat
Oh,
compared
okay.
to last year. It's probably almost funded equally with last year. No big increases or nothing, probably steady.
Anything else? Well, again,
The computer services, that's what we're getting a new program?
Yep, yep, that's where the billing software is sitting in there, and that's also paper pictometry out of there, and really computer-based supports.
as always,
Just one of them.
Yeah.
On page 3, down under miscellaneous, we have budgeted 4,500.
Yeah, there's another one that's all over that, we will capture this over the course of the year, a lot of times it's insurance claims.
Oh, okay.
So that's why you probably see it bounce all over, and then, so it kind of sits there just as a line item that a lot of times gets captured over the course of the year, depending on various upset situations.
Well, I saw that the actual amounts were,
Yeah, well, you look at those historical, and that's a lot of times similar to how, even like the Route 9, similar to how that one was handled. We knew that was going into consolidated sewer, so that it was rolled into the miscellaneous and consolidated sewer. But sometimes we'll start with it up in the miscellaneous because we're not quite sure how it's all gonna shake out with insurance claims. Accepting, denying, rates, how much we did. So,
thank you, Scott.
any other questions?
as always,
I'm sure we have plenty, but not for this, but yeah.
But that's what I'm saying, if folks have other questions, feel free to reach
by all
out to
means.
Scott. The one last thing that I want to give kudos, and it's it should be a responsibility of the department head, but since Scott has taken over that role, he has really reclaimed efforts to do the budget in-house. In years past, that had been kind of been an outhouse process. Yeah,
Is that a pun?
Something like that.
slightly.
Okay.
So thank you for your work on that, and enjoy the birthday weekend celebrations.
Don't forget
All right,
the donuts,
thanks.
Scott, you can actually take a couple
Yeah.
bags.
Yes,
There's some bags back there.
Enjoy the rest of the
Have a
day.
birthday donut.
So,
Thanks, Scott.
Bye, Scott, thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm warmed up for you.
I'm not next.
There should be some space somewhere.
No, we didn't.
come on, we can,
Tim's coming in.
Oh, Tim's coming?
Okay.
Oh, no, thanks, but no,
Jim's here, we can help. Jim Joyce is here.
Joanna, come on,
Oh, Jim's here.
come on down.
Yeah.
You're ready.
Morning, Jim.
It's like a game
What do you
show.
do?
Judge Patton had asked me to sit in for him too.
Okay.
Why, is he going somewhere?
Yeah, he's considering himself a lame duck. Those are his exact words to me.
Just to get out of the
So we can do both at the same time, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay,
But
that
we're
sounds
pretty
good
much the
to
same
me.
budget.
Yeah. So, Joyce, okay.
Page 3.
It's 5 ended.
3 and 4 actually, but, well, actually 3, 4, and 5, because we're doing both.
Yep.
Really no significant change, I'll just jump in if you don't mind, Jim. There's really no significant changes in the budgets. The only decrease we had under Justice Joyce's, one of his employees is no longer on health insurance, so we saw a decrease in medical insurance in his. Otherwise than that, they're pretty much mirror last year except for raises and, both justices. We put in conference for both justices to go to New York City, and their clerk says,
Yep.
we do every year because it's required training for them, so.
It's kind of a little,
Are there
They
any-
get great benefit from going to New York City, so.
Were there any longevity raises in there?
Yes.
Okay. The clerk?
Clerk, both court clerks and the comp typist,
Okay.
senior clerks, right?
I was just checking the percentages. Okay.
Jim, your clerks seem, when I talk to them, excited to go to the conferences because it allows them the time to sit with other people and
It
compare
does.
notes, so I just want to say, appreciate that,
I know for me,
their
it's the only way I could do it.
interest.
Do you know where you, I know you always rank like, it seems like 40, 44, 45th or whatever, you know what your current ranking is?
I
out of
think
curiosity?
we dropped a couple down to, I want to say we were at 41, we're down like 43 or 44 now in the state.
Yeah, but that's not a huge drop though.
No, no,
I mean, it's not like you're, going from 40 down to like 70 something or something.
No, I don't ever foresee that happening.
Yeah, so,
You don't, huh?
Not unless they took all the law enforcement from the area and sent them all home.
and I got to town hall this morning around 7 o'clock or so, and Jim was here.
And I was here.
He was already doing an arraignment, so I
It's my
mean, it's.
third time since midnight.
Yeah.
The third time since midnight?
You bet. Wow.
And then,
So you sleep during the arraignments, or when do you sleep?
Usually 9 to 12. No, it's, I get a couple a week, but not usually a couple a night. Especially, this was the same individual.
Oh.
Is this basically the same as Judge Patno?
Yes.
Number of times?
Yeah.
Generally?
The first year or two, he probably got called out a lot more. Over the course of the next few years, it became pretty even. And the last few months, it's been thrown more towards me because they all know that he's leaving. So they push things off towards me, which is okay because whoever's coming in new, like to bring them in slowly rather than just get hammered all at once at the first year. It's quite an undertaking.
Yeah, so you're the trainer this time.
Well, if you want to look at it that way, I will tell.
Mentor.
Whoever is going to take that position, I had a better teacher than they'll have.
Well, I don't know, you've learned a lot since you've been there.
I've learned a lot, but Judge Patno is hard to replace.
How many years have you been doing now, John?
6.
yeah.
14 more to go.
No.
So,
If I do it again, it'll be one more time. That's it.
any other,
On page 4 of the envelope, just curious.
I was going to bring that up. I think that's a misprint.
Oh.
Okay.
I think the decimal point's wrong.
Yeah.
Is this supposed to be 2,300?
Yes.
2300.
Yeah, it happens.
this one's tentative.
Yep.
We also discussed, neither of us in many years have used the stenographer services. We're wondering if we need to even have that line item in there anymore.
We use that for translators also, so
Okay.
that's why I keep that.
Well, I
Oh,
do-
And we just never know,
Call
it's
that.
one of
Yeah,
those things, you'll
that's
never
the
know
question
if
I
we're
was
gonna
gonna
use it,
ask,
so
Yep.
it's easier to have it in there than take it out, so.
Yep.
And I have used the translator a couple of times in the past couple of years, so.
Okay. For French Canadian or just any? type of-
The only one I called in is, I had a Russian and I've had a Canadian.
Okay.
This year, luckily, I had a Mexican and one of the attorneys I found out speaks fluent Mexican.
Spanish? Okay.
It's most
So you're all set for that then?
Pat, Jim, on page 5, just to help refresh my memory, contractual services, they're up just a little bit, so what type of contractual services?
That's usually with the sheriff's department.
Okay, that's what I want to just make sure there's nothing else, okay.
And we continue to have conversations with the sheriff's department.
Exactly.
There's not a lot we can do with that either. I feel, with our business, I'm uncomfortable being without them.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying, it's more about, can you find the individual with those particular shifts and stuff? I would not recommend taking that program out.
Ongoing discussions are important, and again, it's driven by the negotiated agreements, and just so people know that, in terms of the seniority of who wants to be working overtime, but we're still working on the discussions.
All right. Anything else?
No, just say, thanks for your great work, and I wish you luck and patience in the next year.
It's okay. I'll be happy when somebody else gets called in once a month. Probably the only bad thing about it. The rest of it, I still find exciting and educational.
Yeah.
I'm
Thank
sure
you,
it
Jim.
is. I'm sure it is.
You got nothing else? I'm gonna go take a nap.
All right.
Yes, okay.
Ricky's in here.
Yeah, it's almost 9, so it's time to get there.
Yeah. Take care.
10:10.
All right.
The clock's at 1.
Mr. Rick,
Sir.
We're moving you up in the morning.
Yeah, you were moving up though.
Well, okay, where are we?
Come to the hot seat. Hey, come early.
you back in there?
Where do we call
yet.
him?
Come on.
Baby
Is he
today.
under Jen?
All right.
Yeah, this is under Jen. Rick's.
So we're going to start with building ground first. Okay.
Yep.
And then we'll go to traffic control and street lighting.
What are we doing?
14.
We're gonna do that.
First?
Building and grounds.
We're following the schedule.
Yep.
Sorry.
And we'll go obstructive compulsive.
We're
You?
agile.
No.
We're agile.
So that's all.
Want to just describe our line items or?
Well, let's just go over a couple of changes. I'll just jump in real quick here. So, Dick Provost was promoted this year to a supervisor position, so we're taking some of his salary and allocating it between buildings and grounds and street lighting. We did that in the past with Art's salary, so we felt it was appropriate for this year. So we're splitting that 80% for buildings and ground, 20% for street lighting.
So that's why it was more in 2017 on this building maintenance.
Yes, so now we're taking the salary and allocating it in 2 different places, so. We also upped the overtime a little bit because we're running into some situations where we've had to call people in, so.
And we're,
And we've raised the water and electrical usage for the parks, right? Yeah, because of the increase of the usage of the buildings.
one of the things that we're doing too, is that Brian is working, for lack of a better term, that second shift.
Yes.
Too. So he's coming in and that's helping to address some of the things that we're needing, because before, we didn't have complete coverage from the time the building was open to the time the building was closed. Rick is pulling him from time to time back to the morning part if someone's off, so that they can work as a crew and, achieve,
Large projects.
Larger
But
projects and stuff
normally
like
he would
that.
be working the second.
Yes, yes.
9 to 5.
So, that's a bit of an experiment as we're moving forward, so that we can try to carve out what's working for that. And I know that that was something that I had begun to have conversations with Art about, unfortunately, before he passed. And thanks to Rick to really kind of get his arms around that and say, okay, this is how we're going to do it. Because our building is, you get to be prepped for meetings in the evening and so on and so forth, so.
Rick, you added I think it's on page 16, a new tools line,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Which I think is probably a good idea.
So what we did on that was we reduced the miscellaneous expense
Okay,
and increased the tools one. 'Cause
Yeah.
obviously, building ground purchases pools
Yeah.
and other
Yeah.
tools, and we really haven't
Yeah.
been tracking it that way.
yeah, it's good to see that, because it can be tracked easier.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to the vouchers and reviewing them, we know they're
Yeah.
gonna have a dedicated line item. Okay,
Same page, the park heating, that's because of the increased use?
Yes.
Yeah, because considerably more than what the actual ones were for 15, 16, and looks like 17.
Well, the buildings are getting rented exponentially now, more than they ever have. And the heating covers the electrical, that's all part of the same, under the same category.
And that's also a weather-driven,
Yeah,
so
yeah, so we have
it's
to
been
prepare.
relatively mild the past couple of years.
Who knows what we're going to get.
One of the items we're hopeful is to receive the funds from the Clean Energy Community too, grant, and some of those funds will be allocated to doing LED lights in the parks. So that would be, a helpful, change
Yes.
moving forward. So again, just kind of constantly thinking, a couple of steps ahead as well.
Some of the commercial facilities that people might have previously been able to access have really raised their rates up pretty dramatically, and consequently, things for like a wedding celebration, or not this, I'm talking anniversary celebration. They just, they're coming to us because they can't afford to go to a restaurant. Yeah.
On the same page, page 17, the Social Security, it's been more than what we've allocated, at least the last 2 years. We got 18.7, is that?
It went down.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we had less of a salary adjustment for the arts. Was at a higher salary than
Yeah.
you.
On the other hand, the medical insurance, it's been up quite a bit, right?
That goes up, well, we have another gentleman in there who we hired down at one point. So. Now it depends on what kind of usage, the coverage you have. So, that can fluctuate from one year to the next, depending on if the person jumps from a one person to a family or something like that.
On the page 15, the park field maintenance. So 17 last year, 23 this year. Page 15.
Didn't we go for another line to add that? We upped it.
Well, we have to because you have additional work you want to do on the field
Yes.
this year.
With
So that's
additional
another number
equipment.
that will fluctuate depending on what kind of work he has identified. Him and Mel will sit down and
Okay.
go over what they want to do for the following year.
And the weather,
Yes, the weather dictates
Mhm.
what it is.
I guess the heating for the highway department is the same at the bottom of the page. It's going up because of the, we can keep it that way just because of the weather and stuff like that.
Try to take the worst scenario in case and be conservative on that.
Okay.
could your flex account person drop out?
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be Art only,
Oh, I see.
because everyone else is union.
Oh.
and we
Yeah,
don't have a flex.
okay.
Yep. There's some of the salaries that are up more than others here, is that?
Depends on the contract and if they're new. So if they're new and they're all in the union, so with Donald LaPointe, he will get a 2.5% increase plus $1 increase in the salary for the contract.
Because the current contract, you shoot the top of the scale within 3 years, so depending on the hiring date.
So we have a rate for each department that's in the contract. When they're hired, they're new, they get $3 less than that top rate. And then
Okay.
each year it goes up by $1 plus a 2.5%.
So the labor Douglas is,
He's in the same boat.
huh?
He's in the same
That's,
category.
that's why it's up
Yep.
10%, okay. 'Cause some of them, there's just quite a difference between the 2.5 and the 10%, that's all. It's 'cause that's up 10%.
Rick, being sensitive obviously to the budget, but for us to support you, is there anything in terms of conferences or maybe you don't have the time to even think about that, but we can help you from a
No, you
professional
bet.
development.
No, the board and Michael himself have been more than helpful in my transition into the position that's.
And Rick, I say this a lot, and I will continue, you have really stepped up in this role, and I know there was maybe slight apprehension. I wouldn't say you were, completely worried about it, but, a little bit with, but you've certainly exceeded expectations of myself and the board, and continue to do some good stuff, so, thank you.
We're excited about what's happening in the department.
Yeah, we've thrown
Yes.
several big
Yeah.
extra projects at you
Yeah.
that were not typically under your purview, and you've taken them on happily and enthusiastically, so
And
thank
you're-
you so much.
You seem to still get along with us after we did that.
Yeah. And you're accessible, Rick, I appreciate you.
And I will say this too, that, in going out into the back of the shop and talking with his crew, they respect Rick, and he has a management style that not only gets work done, but I think that the crew enjoys and, respects him from a fun level. And I'll just tell a quick little story. I went back, and they were on break, so this guy's got some lungs, he was singing. I wouldn't necessarily
Oh,
say,
there we go.
quit your day job, but.
And everybody watched as Michael walked in, and I had my back to the side of him,
So what I'm saying is a new department head, whatever we can do to continue to support you.
Yeah.
And again, from a budget standpoint,
Yeah, I
if there's
greatly
anything that's
appreciate that.
formally, that's needed.
Thank you.
And I have a chorus if you're interested in singing.
Well, some days aren't easy, so if you bring a little levity to it, it seems to
Absolutely.
morale's everything.
I love that.
All right, next one's page 18,
Okay.
traffic controls.
What's that page number?
18.
18. Thank you.
Not really much change in this one from the previous years, so.
Yep.
We did lose the Ruger Street though, is that correct? Traffic control
Yes.
to the county.
To the
Yes.
council, right?
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Which was
And to
a-
our benefit.
That's, yes.
That was a
it
that
is
was
to
a
our
good
benefit.
trade.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was the trade?
We took,
What was the trade?
Traded the road.
yeah.
Traded the road.
Okay.
So with the road came the light.
That was the question I asked, is what the
That's
road got
great.
traded for.
That
Sounds
was-
like it's such a
That was
nightmare.
Yeah.
whole
That was the first,
piece of
that was the first
shit.
traffic light that the town of Plattsburgh
That's right, yes.
put up.
That was the first question I
Is that
asked,
right?
what about the
Yeah.
road?
In 1786.
Ruger Street.
Okay.
To Mr. LaFave's chagrin, it was $75,000.
About 150 now to replace that one.
Yes.
Oh,
that's what-
Yeah. So
You know,
it was a good swap.
You can't raise
Yes,
it.
We
You can't raise it
mention all
anymore.
those things though and swap.
You can't,
You can't raise the light anymore because it's stuck on the poles and
pull
there's
it.
huge chunks of cement in the ground, but it's still bringing it in.
Yeah.
The county would have to use mass arms, that's very expensive.
Do they have it
Next
back,
one's street lighting.
back braced back out into the airport,
Street lighting.
old airport property?
Yes,
Too?
that's right.
Yeah.
Somewhat,
That's right.
Huh?
somewhat. And then
Somewhat.
there's extra cables on the guardrails there.
Yeah.
It's at its highest point you can be at.
Yeah.
Well, just a quick summary on street lighting, just on the part that I handled. We did pay off the ban in 2017, which was a little over $100,000, $103,000 every year, so that has reduced the budget. We put $25,000 back into it for future purchase of a bucket truck. We're going to do that every year. By law, we cannot set up a reserve for equipment purchase in there. We can only do it for repair, so that's why we put an equipment capital outlay, we'll be building that fund balance up each year to help pay for that truck 10 years down the road or 8 years whenever it's due.
Yes.
So, otherwise than that, everything else is pretty much the same.
I just want to say about the streetlights, the more conversations we're having with renewable and sustainable energy and LED streetlights is becoming a really big thing. So if we were able to implement some in our parks and town hall and experiment and see how that works, and eventually maybe switch all of our streetlights over, but the big thing that we're hearing when we're talking to consultants or other towns and villages that are going through these changes is that we own our own streetlights already.
Right.
And that's huge. That was a really good move
Yes.
on behalf of the town board when that happened at the time.
Yeah, if they were to do it, they'd have to sub it out, and it would, they'd probably, their return wouldn't be,
Not at all,
Yeah,
so.
they'd have no return.
It was a great move.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get a great return later on.
Yeah.
And the LED will work with doing night lighting too, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we need to, take a look at
And you're right.
capping,
Right. One of the webinars I
capping the
attended
lights
had
so we're not.
Right. yeah.
sort of the comparison of
So we can see the
purchasing
sky again.
streetlights versus.
Well, and that was largely one piece of why we decided to start with our parks program, our parks,
Yeah.
I mean, to really kind of evaluate. We've even talked about, some of the lights, the technology is rapidly moving, forward. But we want to make sure that it's what we're looking for it to achieve, not only from a lighting standpoint, but maintenance and everything else. So, before you go.
And aesthetic, yeah.
Yeah, you make that investment, you don't want it to be
Yeah,
a 5-year
so
life.
new right now, you wanted to make sure that the drivers
Exactly.
will be able to.
Right,
Exactly.
Exactly, yeah.
But you talk to any experts in that industry and they say that one of their first questions is, do you own your own streetlights? And the fact that we do is always surprising and impressive.
Well, I was mentioning to May, I was in a webinar a little while ago, they offer these free webinars, which are really good to stay in touch with these things. And they had a column of, advantages, disadvantages, and sometimes the purchasing now is so complex that the township is just probably bewildered with what to do next, so.
It was a really good move.
And we have opportunity to get more funds in the future because of it.
Absolutely.
Anything else? I think that's it, boss man.
So you want to-
Thank you very much, Rick.
Thank you.
There's some
Thank you.
donuts there, Rick, in
No.
the bag too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got you.
You
Take a
get
bag.
one with you.
There's a bag to go.
So some of the young.
Or
Take more than one, take more than
One or
one.
two. That's it.
Yes.
Oh, Ricky, baby.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you very much, Rick.
We're gonna get one.
Thank you for plenty of very suitable, very good challenge individuals.
So we're back to Brian.
Yep.
Brian, come on up.
Hey, Gib. Did you get that?
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning.
Yep.
How do you do?
Yep. I brought it this morning, Saturday.
That's right.
Yes,
I do come here.
yeah, it's an unusual day.
Thank you for being here.
I got plenty to do, I can go
There's
back
three
and put a
minutes
few more hours in this one if you want.
We have to watch out for that too. That's why we have to go through this, you see.
No, I just take it off another day. You're not paying overtime. I have no idea. I'm fine, I'm approved. Good.
Easy.
Yeah. That's fine. And you don't know. I have no idea what the prediction is.
Right.
But at least something's there. Yeah. Yeah, if other people are paying attention.
All right.
Budget-wise.
We're paying attention.
We're listening, we're ready.
Let's go.
Oh, I don't know where I start. Thank you very much, I like the budget.
You don't have an issue with it,
It's up to us to say if we like the
I wrote it, I like it, it's good.
I have one more.
Brian, you tentatively like it,
I
right?
have one more step to make and we're done, as far as I'm concerned.
8.
So I'll hit a couple real
Okay,
quick,
thank you.
just to help Brian out. So equipment and capital outlay, last year he needed a new file cabinet, so fireproof
Oh,
file
okay.
cabinet, so we budgeted $7,000 for that. This year he doesn't need that, so his budget did drop down.
Done in and being used.
How much is a fireproof cabinet? We probably
$7,000.
Oh, the.
6,500, I think Stephanie beat me by $25.
And then you should have seen.
And I was gonna have it delivered poor boys had to go to work, Rick, thank you, had to go and drag it in.
That's why I don't have one at home.
Yeah.
The moving of it was,
Yeah, they're
It's
not,
all of 800-900 pounds.
yeah, they're
They're
heavy.
they're not cheap, so.
No, they're not.
So, you know,
Then the next item, at the bottom of the page, contractual services, that's up $3,600 because of pictometry,
Okay.
which is the flyover we do every, what, 4 or 5 years, Brian?
Mhm.
we're trying to go 4. In fact, Trevor even mentioned the other day, he felt it getting old. I inquired Friday, and we'll get a final proposal from them on Friday, because I've been waiting to see what the county returned, the city, and have had no response. So, in order to get on board for April, we need to make a move now, basically.
this is one of those items that, during the shared services panel, that I lobbed out there. It wasn't, no one really kind of grabbed onto it. I'm hopeful, because of the commitment of the Town Supervisors Association, and I'm actually meeting with Harry McManus, as well as John Douglas in a week or two, I'm gonna put this one back on the table, because I really do believe that there's a lot of benefit, and we use it as a fine example. Not only is the assessor's department, but highway and emergency management. I mean, we can really tell a good story there, and hopefully the county will see some value, so.
Some of the stuff that today I went on, I'd like to say that unfortunately, because I didn't know what time was due here, I went on to our website to see, and it's not there, so, but I did notice that Trevor has this interactive, we have created, which comes from this stuff, that interactive map through our GIS and photometry is, so the public in a sense gets a benefit out of it as well, not just our department heads.
And the resolution's gonna be good enough
Education
to,
there.
Oh, yes, the resolution will be we're gonna be the same as we were before, so that you can read the number of cell towers on the number of cell antennas on the towers, that kind of stuff. That's the
it seems to me before, we did a better resolution for some areas of our,
We have,
the
it's the
others.
same selection in observance of keeping the costs within. I could go 3-inch tiles throughout the whole town, but that's gonna be significantly more than what we're budgeted for what we have now.
Right, we could count the tiles on your solar panel, but I don't think they really cared about that.
So like the middle of the
As long as I don't
airport,
pay for any
things
electricity,
like the middle of the airport and the middle of some of the areas north of 374, they're just huge tracts of woodland, I'll find maybe the outhouse in there, but so that kind of stuff doesn't require a 3-inch resolution.
Yeah.
And we probably wouldn't be taxing that much anyway, those kind of outhouses.
Well, Mr. Tame was surprised when we found it for him. And the Board of Review was pleasantly surprised to see that there they are, so it helps that way too.
So, and pictometry is shared between planning, code,
Yes,
zoning,
yeah.
and
Highway,
sewer.
right?
No?
No, we don't throw Jim in on that
He
one.
gets a free ride on that.
He does help us.
Yes, he
Yeah.
does.
But
That's
they
what I
do,
remember.
yes, the Jim has come in and said, can we look, and then where are these trees in relation to boundary lines?
Yes.
We've done it here, then went out in the field at one time, and yes, it worked out that the trees were on our land. So, in those cases, Jim, it does help.
Yeah, we had a constituent
Well, it just
situation where that
shows
helped.
Department heads working together.
Yeah,
which is-
exactly. Yeah, that was
I
very
have some
cool.
trees that are on,
I know you.
You have a very nice cedar hedge, trimmed very well, with some, because I brought Kayla in to look at your house.
oh, you've been in already?
We drove around.
Oh, you didn't come back?
No, we stopped in,
Oh, you
turned
can see all the
around.
other stuff I've done.
Well, I keep track of those politicians.
You can see it with.
Fortunately, he didn't go back into the backwoods, so he doesn't know what I have back there.
Oh, God.
Oh,
All right.
Just no additions, we don't want any additions, without letting Steve know first.
So the other significant change is the legal consultation.
Right. Yeah.
And that you can speak to. Chris.
Well, I think we've all been awakened over the last several years as to the importance of having knowledgeable skill sets in different areas. I mean, you have certain types of accounting, you have certain, they're professionals that focus on certain areas. And my particular law has certain steps and procedures that, if not met, and so the legal consultation is to
hire that expertise. Point in fact, did we not just receive a thing from, on one of our cases, because they didn't file with the Board of Review, they sent the data information they're filing to the city, they no longer have credence in a case this year against us, so.
There's some interest, all these.
So that's
types of
done
things
with
are-
them.
No, just this year.
This year.
There's a pile
Yeah.
of years in the
No, just
past.
this year.
But it's those little details that,
Still
you
save
know,
us.
any general municipal attorney, unless they work in it, they're not gonna know it, you know? And I will have to admit, CJ, for many years covered all this, but he also did some dabbling in the law itself to learn, to get there. So, in this case, and then, followed up with some of these lawsuits, you do need to have the appraisal. And this category could not only just go for an attorney, but to pay for an appraisal if this needed to be done. Or our portion, again, we have lots of work to do on certain fronts of this kind of stuff.
Well, I just want to go back to, the certiorari work and the specialty lawyers and stuff like that. One of the reasons, and this is a little bit of a jump, but I want to make the connection because this is my motivation to it. Jim's, as the town attorney, has stayed flat because what we're doing is some of the work that was going to maybe the town attorney is now being pivoted over to some of these specialty lawyers. So limited resources, the work isn't going into the same bucket. So, making sure that we find ways to put that, some of that allocation into the appropriate locations. I applaud Brian for helping to identify a pathway forward on some of these things too. Because as hard as Brian works, when these are challenges to what he's doing, his profession, his professional work. And, when a Dan Vincelette, whoever, turns around and says, no, Brian was right because of X, Y, and Z, you gotta find the case law, you gotta find those defensible moments and things like that, so.
Well, that's a good lead-in, because one of the things I think is important to ask of each of the department heads is, based on complexities or compliance and thinking path forward with the conferences and training, is there anything else we can do to support that? Again, being sensitive to the budget, but.
No, there's a few things, like, to ease the facility of the job or the legal aspect of it. The legal aspect, I think we're in a great spot right now. I think you're gonna begin to see, we took a hit the first time through, but Dan is a pretty solid attorney. And when I sat in the last hearing for, before you go into appellate court, there's civil action settlement procedure, a CASP hearing. It's required that you try to mediate out an answer in front of a mediator. None of it goes back to the court. The whole thing that happened on our table a couple weeks back, it took all afternoon. I didn't finish. Last time I was there, it was a half hour, we're done. And that was when we were in the city. This time I started at 1, we didn't get done before 4:15. And you're like, whoa, There was a serious effort on our side to try to settle the case.
I'm gonna
Right.
just caution you.
Yeah, we can't say anything.
Right.
But there was a sort of, and then it was met with a little bit of rebuttal and said, we're gonna go home and figure it out, So all of that, in that timeframe, you realize the extent and scope of what these guys are doing, because they all know each other within their field. We're sitting and talking to the opposing attorney, and up comes discussion on solar panels. And they look at me and said, what is your take on solar? Well, obviously, we've had our brush with solar, so I explained what we do in this town, and they thought, that makes common sense. But in other communities, they're being told how to do it. This is what this community does, or this community does. And so they sit in a spot where they're going all over the state. They see all of us, and they have a way to, also in their aspect, judge us, understand how the judges work, and who the opponents are, just like in any other actionable theory of law,
And so in concert with that is also your professional development, because we have new staff members, so.
Yeah,
Kayla,
I have, I just put a note in front of Kayla, I think, I want her to take, it's a 36-hour course, basically, but it's being offered online, so she can take a few hours while she's here and take some class, and the test is in Raybrook, you know? So it's the fundamentals of assessment administration. It gives you a lot of meat of what the office does. Now, we sent her off just before she got hired, or just as she got hired, we sent her off to an exemption profiling course for a few hours in Malone, and believe me, she understands now today how that works, because last year we had a little hiccup trying to make her understand the scope. This year, she's way out in front of us. She had the letters, the renewals all done, boxed, labeled, put aside, and just in her mind says, I'm gonna fire these ones off this time, this one. And we've had a steady stream of the seniors coming in on our aged exemptions, probably 50% of them already in the month of September, and things are not due till March. And we do it because they're coming in to pay the tax bill, and we do it because it's nice weather. They're not coming out in crummy weather. So, and I'm getting a lot of compliance, a lot of them in early. There is some flaw, because unfortunately some pass before the dates happen, but we catch that later.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Anything else?
Looks good.
All right.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Yes, Brian, appreciate your time.
Oh, that was
Thank you very
simple.
much.
Thanks, Patrick. Thank you all, too. Thank you.
It's almost a shame to get you up that early.
I don't think so.
I had to get up. Except it's not as sunny outside as I would want.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Who's on, Jim, or do I go get Steve?
Trevor is
Trevor is
actually.
over there. Where is he?
Steve,
Trevor's here.
Oh, Trevor's here, okay, yeah.
All right, so I'll go holler to let them know
Yeah, I had a
that.
schedule,
All right.
so we're doing
Thank
good.
you, everybody. Have a good day.
Trevor's here. Tell Steve to come because it won't be.
thanks,
You'll
Brian.
break them over.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you,
You'll break them
Brian.
over the whole
Thank you.
No, pretty
Yeah, I
fast.
noticed, usually, yeah,
Hey, they're waiting. They're both here waiting for you.
you have a good whiffy.
All right, Trevor.
Trevor. All right. But Steve's waiting. He's got to, don't let him hold his breath too long.
Morning.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Morning, Trevor.
Good morning. 26. Morning. Good morning.
Mornings.
Morning.
And a good morning it is.
Do you need a top up on your coffee?
Donuts,
good, this is number 2.
Okay.
Do you need a donut?
donuts for the kids, there's a bag over there, Vicky.
Definitely not for the kids.
Oh,
Last
okay,
time I
good
saw
for you,
him,
sir.
he was trying to get double dips off his stools over there.
Drink it down. Everything was for Michelle.
All right.
All right, I'm going to hit just a couple of the items I have that are of interest. Retirement's down because we had Mr. Von Barton retired this year, or last year, so we had increased the budget in anticipation of that. And also, health insurance is going to be down because one of Trevor's employees does not have health insurance for the town, so we saw a significant decrease in that, so. And then the rest of
You just had an increase, Trevor, in your conference training, but that's because of adding, Melina's here.
We had Melina
And Matt.
and Matt Favreau,
Okay.
both of which benefit greatly from training as new employees, so we added a little extra in there to bring them up.
Good.
Do you want to give a quick little highlight too about the comprehensive plan?
Yes, you see that under comprehensive plan zoning update, there's $60,000 allocated there. You'll see the same thing in codes and zonings budget. We're splitting the cost of a smart growth plan, which we've applied for. Hopefully, if all goes well and we receive the grant, you'll see that total amount refunded. So, we'll put some money in there to pursue the comp plan with the hope that that'll be refunded through a consolidated funding application grant for zoning.
And the clean energy community, we're also.
Clean
trying to
energy
apply some
community,
funds too.
$20,000, that's, we're feeling 98% sure, 98.9% sure we're going to get $20,000 from that as well, so that, again, takes away from that total $120,000. Hopefully that'll be net zero.
When do we actually find out about?
Clean energy is December, and actually same with CFA, so we should know both of them.
But again, that relates to that resolution that I introduced at the last work session. We want to continue to move things forward so that we can take full advantage of,
The smart growth resolution.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's the comprehensive land use plan it's all wrapped into.
You didn't ask, but I'll point out another one here that just can be a, why that? You'll see that legal notices went up. We've just had a lot more projects. Simple as that, a lot more projects that we're noticing in the paper. We exceeded that amount in previous years. It seemed adequate. It's just been more projects, so we pay for those notices to go in the newspaper and also notice of public meetings, so we just simply need to put more in there to cover it. Which is, in theory, a good thing.
And I think that goes back to how we're doing the budgets now, where you take your budget and really start out at zero and see what you actually need, because
That's what we did.
obviously your needs change every year, so, you know, just
Yeah.
like Brian's, you need a file cabinet, so it was up one year, down the next year, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, the actual, we had already exceeded it by $320, so.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Good shape.
I just give you some kudos while you're here, Trevor. I know that you're still a fairly new department head yourself, and
I'm anything for engineering services.
What we do now, typically, is we get full reimbursement for all of our laborage. So the zoning ordinance has always allowed us to seek reimbursement for outside consultants associated with site plan review. So we are very thorough about that now. So year to year, if a project requires, say, a stormwater review or a traffic report, we have that conducted. Then that gets billed to the applicant. We get full reimbursement. So we've left that line, but no longer feel the need to allocate money to it for that. Now you'll see contractual services still has money in it.
But shouldn't we, Pat, shouldn't we be showing the expense for engineering services and showing the revenue for engineering services?
We're not really, it's not expenditure to the town, so that's why we're not showing it.
it's on the client.
It's all on the client.
All on the client.
Yeah, so what happens is we get a bill from LaBerge, we bill the company, whoever it's for, they pay it, and then they give us the money, then we pay the bills. So it's not really a true expenditure of the town, so.
We used to carry that, so now, and now we don't, so it's
Okay.
less of a requirement for the town, so.
So I was saying, I want to, as a newer department head, Trevor, I just want to again give you kudos too for really digging in deep and cutting your teeth on the budget and training a new employee. And, you know, they had kind of a weird month where what was it, 6 years you didn't have anything? But Trevor didn't sit back and kind of go, oh, well, we had an easy month. He, energized this board by putting together a training and, has really continued to do some things that will not only advance the department, but the board and the overall climate of working with people. So you're to be applauded on that. And I'm a little cat out of the bag, if people don't know this, but he and Paulie Dominicus in the city are going to be featured in a joint article in Strictly Business coming up about the collaboration of not only the town and the city, but I think it speaks volumes that Trevor was identifying for that, so.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, good.
I didn't realize he was new. I thought he'd been here a long time.
Yeah,
He just-
well, new to his
Still
role.
fairly new as a department,
Real
so.
smart.
Young buck.
Yeah, and that training was very good. Tom and I had a chance to go in.
Thank you.
And Obviously, we
We hope to do more of that in-house and satisfy the needs of the training. We still identify that we want to do outside training, because you can get,
Yeah.
certain things you want from the outside, but when we can cover basics and really bring our boards up to speed in-house and save money doing it, absolutely.
good on board.
And we can be specific to the needs of Plattsburgh when we do that, rather than attending it. I think that would be more doing it.
That's important as we get new members on the planning board. And
What are you doing from a continuing education standpoint?
Well, we, every year we attend at least two, either the New York Planning Federation training and the American Planning Federation training. Just 2 weeks ago, we went down to Lake George, the Economic Development Commission for Warren County. We went to planning and zoning training. That was great. It was very timely. It was about solar installations, complete streets. They covered hamlet revitalization, comprehensive planning. So perfect timing for Milena being on board as a new employee as well. So I don't take myself out of the the continuing education thing at all. I mean, I need it as much as anyone
Yeah.
else.
You're a good self-advocate too. I mean, which people should be. I mean, you gotta know what you don't know, and you gotta know what you do and leverage it appropriately.
Yeah, I don't read every new article that comes up, so I need to learn something every now and then.
Anything else for Trevor?
No.
Oh, great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you send Stephen?
Have a great day.
Yeah, you
And
too.
everything.
Take some donuts, there's some bags over there.
Oh,
Everybody's supposed to take a
Take a
donut
few,
at least.
take a few.
Granola,
We got 3 bags over there.
I'll take two, I'll take two.
Or a bag?
I'm not gonna take a bag.
Take a bag.
Yeah, take a
two.
bag, I'm serious.
All right. Okay, see you later.
Hello, Steve.
Good morning.
Hey, Steve.
Good morning, Steve.
Page 24.
So we've already hit pictometry and comprehensive plan, so.
I'm good.
Take speed things
Well,
along.
thanks for
We're not done.
You're not done, Steve, just expedited a few things for you.
I don't need to jump on the needs.
Okay, 24.
So the only thing really I have from my perspective, because Maria retired, we have a retired health insurance in Steve's office that's new this year, and I'll continue on, so Steve doesn't have any control over that, so.
I'll throw in 2 things, a bit short and simple. If you already went over pictometry, you already went over the comprehensive land right, so that was that 60,000?
Yep.
That we went into there. Hopefully we'll kick that off with the help of Michael, getting some board members like you did, telling you involved in the last one. That's more logistics, getting people on board and getting a consultant, whoever it is we use, getting them on board, trying to spend, we encumbered funds with 7,500 from Trevor and I for this year. We're hoping to get that started. Looking at getting consultants this year and then use the rest, encumber the rest of the funds that we don't use into next year. Pictometry would be great. We use it daily and weekly. Yesterday we were talking about, we used it 3 times before 8 o'clock. You know, just people coming in, where are my property lines, where is this? So it is even though it's 3 or 4 years old, we still use it for the basics. So it is a great tool that we use quite a bit.
So on that, Steve, every 4 years is probably when we should update it?
Even 3 years, it's good, but 4 years, people, they do stuff.
Right. Okay.
So we can say, no, it wasn't there 4 years ago. We can kind of call them out and say, well, here's 4 years ago, it wasn't there. It's here now, so you can't blame it on the last person that was there. So it works very well. It's a great tool, not only for Brian, for us. Actually, the sheriff's department, like if they'll call up and ask us, hey, what do you have there? So if they're going to do a raid or look or anything else, we can hand it to them and they can say, all right, there's a building here, there's something here. So it gets used.
That's why we're trying to bring the county.
Yes.
You know, because they're using some, some resources
Fair
to
share.
have it in their, in their hands if it's a Saturday or Sunday, you know what I mean? They have to call Steve up and have him log on and print them off.
And the fire department uses it huge for 911 services.
Okay.
So if they want to start redoing buildings or 911 numbers, or even if it's a strip mall that did an addition, well, now you have unit A, B, C, D, and just totally blank on his name. Kelly Donahue. Kelly is very instrumental in using and getting the 911, so he uses it quite a bit. Why they don't want to pony up the money is beside me, but. And then we also did vehicle repair.
Yeah, I see that.
We jacked that up to $5,000. Our plan is if we do finally hire the 3rd person, because the code officer test was just redone for town of Peru, so we're gonna have a fresh list. That instead of buying a new car, we were looking at $5,000 per repair. If we need to Band-Aid one of the Jeeps, they seem to be not the most reliable vehicles that we put into. So if we can get 1 more year out of one of those, if something goes, we have money in the reserves to be able to repair it, to keep it going. The new person will be 80% out in the field, just doing inspections, decks, addition stuff that we can't get to. So they'll be putting miles on a vehicle. That was the idea of vehicle maintenance. We did put money into, we're still, if it was the blue one or the gold one, the rear end went when they were going down to Albany. It didn't work out very well, so if we have money in the reserves to be able to do that, great. Then next year at this time, then we'll be looking at it.
Okay.
So
fairly confident about being able to find a new code enforcement officer.
No, not truly.
Not yet,
I was involved in the town of Peru one, and it was difficult. Bob, the guy that hired, was in Montana. The other ones they would have cost the municipality more money. And don't know if you know any of the people that were hired, they weren't the best candidates, and they weren't fitting, for the jobs. It just personalities didn't work, but a new test for the Peru came out. So there was 14 people that took the test, so I'm hoping out of the 14 people, we can find somebody that'll fit with us. In trying to be financially responsible, not getting somebody that's brand new, someone that's already got the qualifications that we don't have to spend another $3,000 or $4,000 to send to New York State for all the code updates and the code education would be great. If we can't, we can't.
We got to something.
Yeah, exactly. So the confidence level, don't know, I haven't seen the list. Usually it takes 3 or 4 months for that list to come out. It's been a month and a half, so we've been checking with Department of Personnel to see if the list came out, just so we can start looking and getting ready for the first of the year to start doing it.
It's amazing to me how long it would take to get the list out.
Well, I mean, we've gone through that a couple of different areas, not just with the list, but just working through title structure and a number of other things. I mean, it's frustrating, I guess the most appropriate word.
And trying to hire a part-time code officer that was a nightmare just through the Department of Personnel, through civil service, and then trying to try to find somebody for that.
Any other questions?
Legal notices on page 25.
That kind of stuff on the far side.
Say that again?
Legal notices
You know what I'm
on
saying,
page
rather than
25,
hiring
fourth one down.
somebody on a part-time basis.
Okay.
Can you
Uh,
enter into a
The
contract?
actual amounts,
Or is that, you're just
550,
you're just trying to get around?
844, and we're budgeting 300. Is that?
They're tough, and I'll say Department
Yeah,
of
we-
Personnel is tough to deal with.
We increased the one above it, Tom, because we're splitting them different.
Oh, okay. All right. They're different categories?
Yeah. Yeah, because one is for the board, the other one is.
Okay, so this is going to take care of it?
Yep, yeah, that's why and it's up.
All right.
Who's next?
Mel, she's here, but I don't think she is. So,
Thank you, Steve.
Steve, thanks for coming in.
Appreciate it
So
very
you got
much.
Mel down for
Saturday.
10:30, it's only 9:30,
Well, we're moving fast.
so I
Yeah.
don't mind going.
yeah, come on.
If you don't mind having me go, well, you don't care.
No, I don't. That's why I said, come on.
I didn't mean you, Steve, I was everybody else. Tim's not here, if I can call him, but I mean,
Call him, tell him.
take him 5 minutes to get here. He was here last year.
Yeah.
Before it.
That's all right.
Is Mel
Okay.
ready, you say?
I don't
No, I don't
think
think
so,
she's here
but
yet.
you've got it for
I'm
10:30.
gonna text her and tell her we're early and ask if she can come in.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yay.
Big thing, yeah. Thank you, Tom.
So, excuse me.
Didn't have my donut yet.
Well, there's 3 bags, so.
I know, I can't go home with those.
So there's no excuse.
You can go home with them.
No, no.
The crows will eat them.
The crows are good. There's something though.
I don't
I
know.
think you're going hard.
Huh?
Oh, you're going already.
How you getting them? You got my well.
You know what's right for you.
All right.
So we'll start with, we're on page 19, is that correct? All right. So, not really much change in this. The only thing we had to change was the equipment capital outlay. We increased it by 1,000 because Jim has 2 computers that are old. And we put them up for slate in case they die on us, so,
Keep the deal with one too.
yeah. we're the winner. And the other thing is, as we all know, Jim's retiring, so that we have retired health insurance built into this also.
So,
What's up with that?
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Can we
yes.
deny it?
This is a tentative budget.
She mentioned that the other day. I'm getting holes, what's up with that?
I think you can deny it, but I still think he's leaving.
Pretty sure I am.
So what happens with that 75, 58, 58? I assume that's just an automatic increase.
Yeah, yeah.
2.5%.
November 2nd, I have my retirement meeting. So they'll give me the date exactly when, but I'm assuming it's the
That is important.
January,
end of June.
end of January.
That soon, you know?
But we could get a big storm, and he could just love plowing so much that he might just say,
I do like them.
I know.
Will
That's
you
what-
come back and plow for
I
us?
have talked about doing it on an on-call
Okay.
basis. I really have done it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to
I
get
don't
Like Fred.
Yeah. Most of the guys that retire from here, that's the thing they hate the most.
Yeah.
Like Jimmy Carter, he just knows no way.
And
Well, you
ready-
get called at 2 in the morning, I don't mind it at all.
Fred had nothing to do with when you called him, he just didn't like, he didn't like driving in the snow.
No. And Carter doesn't like getting called at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, I don't mind it. And I'm up early every morning.
Kind of hard to plow snow if you don't like driving in there, right?
That's right.
Oh.
And I love it. I don't mind it.
No, he just didn't like that part of the job.
Huh. He likes laying asphalt.
Yes, he does.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
what Fred
you know.
does. He's good at it,
And
too.
the only reason he wasn't here this year, because his wife is not well.
No.
So, you know, he can't leave her, so.
Yeah.
But anyway.
All right. Any questions on that one? We did?
The next one is storm drainage. This is all related to the base.
Are any of the roads collapsing there?
Nope. We had the water department camera one of our pipes. There is an issue on Idaho, but it wasn't our pipe. Yeah,
Excuse me.
it's a big pipe, it's 6-foot diameter pipe. We have them camera 650 feet from storm drain to storm drain to storm drain, right across Idaho, or across Connecticut. And it doesn't appear to be the pipe. So we're gonna have to do a test hole to find out what it is. We don't wanna wait for the ground to tighten up because there's running sand there. And you can end up digging a huge hole. And right now, it's just like this off the shoulder, but you could end up the size of this room because it just keeps fishing.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wait for it to tighten up. And we'll dig and see what's going on. I mean, I didn't realize till a few weeks ago that, years ago, they had a steam pipe above ground.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a pipe below ground. The one above ground just replaced the one below ground. Of course, then when they get to the intersection, they have to wonder. But Eric Day's the one who told us. We were there cameraing the pipe. He came over and said, "You aware of it?" I said, "Nope, I wasn't." So every place where there was one above, there's something below. But I guess those pipes are wicked thick and coated, so they don't, it might not be that. If it's not that, it's a small breach in our big pipe. It's gotta be. Then we're gonna have to start getting some, I did get a price to see what it would cost a line, 650 feet. This was through contact, and it's not the way it would go. It was $300,000 to do 650 feet. But that's not lining as we kinda all know it. You know, they go in and they put the liquid or whatever. That's not what this is. This is going down in the hole, doing it ourselves, 18-inch pieces, huge, and we bolt it all together. Well, we're not gonna do that. That's out of the question. This would all have to be hired and done. The other way, they come in like the water department did their sewer lines, they line them actually.
They do any with the balloon?
I'm not sure. You can't very well sleeve it because there's no way to get into the manholes.
Oh.
You know, the state can do it across 374, we can too. You know, I've never done it, but we can. You're saving all your upper blacktop and the rest of it.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But you can't sleeve through storm drains.
Right.
You know, you can probably start it where your outlet is, but you sure aren't gonna go thousands of feet in.
Yeah.
It would be thousands of feet in.
So we don't have any of this on our GIS, we don't have all these other pipes underground.
It's all mapped, it's not, there are maps on
Okay.
it. I do have those. Montana, we've done a little work over there, we've got some more issues, and there's a new development going in, I'm hearing about that. We're gonna have to do a little work over there.
You hope the hell the map is of what's in the ground.
Yeah, well, we're finding out some of it's not right. They
That's
show a
right.
main on one side of it, Arizona, we have to keep doing. It's actually on the other side of the road. Yeah, I know.
You got some guy who just came out of college who was, given a job to do it, because it wasn't by bid, it wasn't by bid, it was, some second lieutenant.
ARC's got a lot of issues with drains coming down. I didn't realize there was an open drain on the base coming from where the old hospital used to be,
Yeah.
city property. That comes down through that field, and all of a sudden then it's buried from there to Connecticut. So that whole area right there, they're gonna have to have some infrastructure done there.
What are the issues on Montana?
Some more drainage, it's all drainage for
Okay,
me.
just drainage.
Yeah. Some of it we can do. What's too bad, like on Montana.
Can you do an open ditch?
No.
No.
I don't think so. Well, you could, but it's buried going in, it's buried going out, so you really shouldn't.
Well, I was just saying,
What, the hard thing about doing
do an
any
open
work,
ditch and then cover it.
the hard thing about, it's gonna be hard to save the curbing, because the drainage is so tight to the curbing underneath, and that runs in, so if you have to replace the pipe, you're gonna lose your curbing.
That's what I'm saying.
You know, it's just, the pipe on the tan is easy to fix, I mean,
Wow.
So you're gonna pass this info on to the next?
he knows it.
Everybody knows it.
Yeah, well, no, we're not that much anyway.
Any other questions on that one? Yeah, let's go to highway. Just jump in here real quick and, so county sales tax, we take whatever the county tells us that they're using for our budget and we split that between the highway and the general fund. So it's usually like 64 and 36%, somewhere around that. Chips, we've been getting more money than in the past, but we never know until that year, so it depends on what the legislation does. So we keep it at 150,000, and then we do a budget amendment as the money comes in.
The winter weather recovery one of $26,000 doesn't look like we're gonna get that one. My last meeting was this past Tuesday, and they, oh yeah, we were told we're getting the paid New York, we're getting that. We went to Albany, and we were told it's a program that's gotta be funded every year. So I don't know who's, so we didn't put that in there either. If we get it, it's $34,000, which is great. But you can't really budget on that, but we didn't.
Well, this is an example of how, I appreciate the relationship with Jim. He obviously has the history of all the infrastructure that's in the town and stuff like that. But when I became supervisor, he gave me a very early on invitation, and I've gone the last 2 years and plan to go again this year, is we get down to Albany, we have those critical conversations, because, chips is needed. I mean, it really is. And how long have you been going now? I mean, you've been
6 years.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not just us as the board that's having these conversations and telling the story about our infrastructure. The highway guys get out and they talk about it, and I think that's actually how we've yielded some of that additional funding over the last, what have you.
It's a show of force.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's thousands of highway.
Yeah, just telling the story.
You go to get the t-shirt.
Yeah.
As a ginger, I don't go for the orange t-shirt.
Go look around.
Yeah.
It goes for the early morning.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I was
trip.
gonna say.
That's it.
It's 4 o'clock in the morning, you have to be in the meeting.
That's it, the combination of the 4 o'clock in the morning and the
Then you make your
t-shirt.
stop.
So they might not let me go anymore because I go to too many of the places.
I didn't go, and that's right, I did miss that year, as I was saying. I was slated to go that year.
I keep pointing into other people's assembly and senate
And
districts.
then when it was time to leave, they couldn't find you here, You almost got left.
If you go with me, you're
Anyway.
one of those child vests.
Oh, no, I got people to see down there.
Yeah, gotcha.
Back on the chips,
Yep.
I didn't see an entry for actual in 217. Has it not yet been decided?
We had, 217, we submitted our paperwork, we haven't received anything yet.
Okay, but
So
what-
it's-
do we know what we're asking for?
100 and, no, it's more than that, 210,000 we're asking.
And do we know what we think we're gonna get?
We'll get it.
We'll get the
We get it.
210.
It
Oh,
just,
Okay.
it takes them a little while to process it, so.
Yep.
When we
They have all
paid,
their
we-
paperwork, it's all been sent in with all the invoices and canceled checks, and then they process it.
Okay.
And we use the chip stuff first, so he can get that all done. and
Yep.
hopefully
We'll probably get our
quicker.
check in December, so I don't want to go too fast on that. Yeah.
New York State, working
Yes.
at glacial speed, shocking.
At least we're getting it in the same year, that's good.
Really? So, all right.
A lot of the lines didn't change.
Where's,
Go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, a lot of lines didn't change, but there is one that did. I'm trying to get back up on the equipment capital outlet.
Yeah.
Instead of the 180 or 190, and
Mhm.
shoot over there quick, that's 250. That's what I was at a few years ago, because the price of trucks went up
Just trying to
like
plan ahead, right?
$20,000. The extended warranty's gone up, I think, around $7,000.
Mhm.
And every 2 years we get a truck, so this is the year coming up that you get a truck.
Can I ask a couple of questions? Why is our gas for vehicles,
High.
we're budgeting 8, our 2017 actual so far is substantially lower than that. And yet we're back at 8 for 2018.
It's the same thing on the diesel.
And the diesel, we're way,
I think there's another line too for, yeah, there is.
There's lines throughout each category for diesel, so.
Well, part of it is snow. I mean,
You just don't know, for sure.
I mean, take like what we had
yeah,
last year
we
with
didn't
that
have
big.
much snow.
Except the one big snowstorm
Right.
everybody remembers.
Right.
Yeah.
But the winter was fairly mild. The one before that was even better.
Yeah.
We didn't have to go out till the first of the year.
And we don't know where the price of gas is going. We've been fortunate, it's been low, but if something happens, it could jump way up, and then we're scrambling for it. So that's why we kind of kept that even keel, because we never know how much snow removal we're gonna have, or where the price of gas is gonna go.
When you get the road striping, it's the same way. We haven't been billed from the county yet.
Pardon?
The road striping, it looks like
As if it's,
we've only spent $164. We haven't been billed from the county yet. And the county's already up to 29,000, so I'm gonna be awful tight on that. They just did bank the road, so that bill will be
right,
coming
that will be coming.
Yep.
real soon.
The road materials on page 2, we had 18,000 this year. We're budgeting about 12.
Paving, any chance, now that we have 2 different suppliers, that there's an opportunity to get an agreed upon price with one?
They're gonna try hard to get on the county pricing.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to go out to bid otherwise. If
Oh.
I go off of county,
If you go off the county, you'd have-
then it has to go out to bid.
Yeah.
What was your question that you had?
It's on road materials,
road
it's showing that we
materials,
spent 18,000, but it's
Two-thirds of the way
because
down on page 2,
You know,
there's 18,000
some of that
so
got
far this
billed
year.
on. I couldn't get on microfund, so it should have been over to another account. You turn the page and go over to account number 5112-4500. It should have came off of that one.
Oh,
That's
So we'll move that.
yeah, he'll,
It's already moved.
that and already talked about it, yeah.
okay.
It'll get moved.
So we have enough there.
There's enough there.
I wanted to know where the admin is for highway.
We need admin.
In general.
That's in the general.
That's- Jim's salary, his highway deputy superintendent, and his secretary comes out of the general.
Okay. But the rest of the crew?
The employees?
Yeah.
Yeah, their salaries are broken up by each category.
Okay.
So you'll see on page 1, right under where it says total revenue.
Mhm.
So that's these salaries for that particular department. So it's divvied up in between 4 different departments. So I take all the employees, whatever their salary is, plus whatever longevity, get a total figure, and then Jim and I sit down and figure out how, it's a guesstimate, because we don't know, when winter ends, and we go into the next phases, so we try to divvy it up amongst those by guessing somewhat, and then as the year ends, we move that around.
But the individual,
Yeah, but is there?
We don't have individuals here because because they're broken out into each department, I'd have to list each employee
On
every
a bunch of-
department, 4 different places, allocating so much to each one,
I see.
Okay, based on their.
which is unusual compared to all the other ones.
And
but
the 4 different departments are what?
You have snow removal, you have repairs, improvements, and Clinton and county road maintenance, so.
Okay.
So, as far as checking how much their increases and stuff are.
Employees, contract.
2.5%, unless they're new, then you get that, the dollar bump up.
And I've got 2 or 3 new ones. Something we
If you
should-
want any information,
Yeah.
just let me know and I'll
Well, I know,
work something up for you.
you know, I always check the percentages, and
I know that.
You said snow removal repairs
Improvements?
Improvements.
in Clinton County Road?
Yep.
it just goes back to when I first started on the board, and it was crazy amounts, and they weren't the same for people.
There's no 9% raises, trust me.
We should, Pat and I talked about it, and probably not this year, obviously it's not here, but I did without an employee, took them right out of the payroll in times where we really should start thinking about putting it back in there. When you get a snowstorm, you know, I take my 2 mechanics out of that equation, we kind of need them in the shop. 9 trucks go out, there's only 11 of us total, not counting me and Tim, there's 11. 2 of them run nights. So that means nobody to get on sidewalks quickly. We really need to get one more back in the shop eventually. We really do. And I know that's $100,000.
There's not a line item for that here. is there?
No,
No.
no, but I'm just
He's just saying-
getting into the talking stages.
But we're
to be-
we're starting to have that conversation though, as we're looking forward into a number of different things, so. yeah.
And actually, we will be losing your debt service.
Yep.
It's paid off in 19. So it really would have no budgetary effect then.
Oh, okay.
We don't talk in a year.
Well, we have to start the conversation.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do.
You really do. Because normally I'm in the pickup truck with a plow on it, Tim's in the pickup with a plow on it, whatever. A lot of times I get in the spare truck, and I don't plow, obviously. Pretty sure I'll come back part-time, so, because you never know who's gonna be sick, or who else is gonna be retiring, or whatever. Things happen, so. Yep,
Start your own plowing business.
probably not.
Answer that
He
quickly.
likes to plow when he likes to plow, he
Yeah.
doesn't want to plow when.
I
likes
know,
to
I've
say
already
no,
been
likes
on
to say
fast
no.
about that. And you realize how much that would cost?
All right.
You need $1 million.
Anything else?
Yeah.
What about the salt? and the- Oh, that's just, we haven't paid for anything this year.
Correct.
No.
We're just getting, well, we just got some few bills in right now.
Right.
Just a few.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I had thought you ordered that, but
Huh?
I had thought you had ordered.
Oh, that's ordered.
Oh, it is.
It's ordered, so we're
It's
within
just getting
500,
everything processed.
we're within 500 ton of the total order coming in.
Okay.
And paving wise, you know, we just did Banker Road, that's just a heavy shim really, we tried to true a little it up because of the wheel ruts,
Mhm.
and that's it. That's it for that. And then we,
You're-
as you know,
Yeah,
we just had a major break on the paver,
yes,
but
I saw it.
while I threw it back out from you guys having to approve a purchase because I found a used one,
They did.
Oh, that worked out?
so instead of
Okay.
$6,900 for
Yes,
that
that
part,
we
which
talked
is
about.
not terrible, I mean, that's ridiculous for what it, anyway. The other part is exactly the same, we thought, but there's a bearing in it
Mhm.
that's smaller. So there's a guy up in Altona or Ingraham, anyways, it's done. Tim picked it up yesterday. He, the emergency fix for us was $80 for him to fix that, but now it's identical to what we needed. I'm just-
Jim,
I'm just-
you're wheeling and dealing, if I can call it that way, and I mean it in a positive way, because I saw the break, folks, he brings me out when there was
So
something
we
like
got that on the trailer, just
Yeah.
2 of us.
Yeah, I know.
I was kicking the tire to help.
So the question was asked, so
Well,
Jim,
I
what
tell
are
you,
your options? And he gave me 1, 2, 3. The third one was to try to see what he could do that would make it still safe, but,
when the guys called me, they were in panic mode. There was 4 trucks loaded with asphalt,
yeah,
and the paver was broke.
yeah, I know.
Luckily, we were able to borrow one, and anyway, that's all worked out. And,
So
they should be put back together Monday morning within an hour, and we
So
back out the road.
Okay.
And the salt price this year was the same as last year. Obviously, we have no clue what it's gonna be next year, really. We don't, depends on the winter. If you have a bad winter, the
Yes.
price is gonna go up. But we're gonna have a wicked nice pile this year. And I'm still waiting to see if anybody else can come up with something better, more environmentally friendly. I read that article that they had a big meeting up in Ticonderoga. But the very last line, if you read in there, this one guy has this environmentally friendly stuff, that's only for around your house and stuff within 15 feet. The people like it because they don't track it in. There's still nobody that's come up with anything that's a good solution other than salt. To that, but they really, really have. Beet juice, you've heard, we use it out west, and, you know, it's gonna cost a fortune to retrofit your trucks and where you get the beet.
Other than driving on snow and ice, that's.
Well, that's not good. We ran out of salt and sand one year. That was terrible.
Wow.
All we put down was straight sand, and that doesn't work.
On page 5, you got curbing, and is there any particular?
Alaska doesn't use
Montana?
that.
No, what do they use?
Chains.
Snow wheels.
Everybody has
If you read
chains.
that article, they said the public's gotta be on board with whatever you do, because if you're gonna leave roads hard packed, then you gotta slow down.
I remember when, and it wasn't, I mean, in the late 60s, you had to have either studded snow tires or you had to have chains on your tires in like the city of Albany.
That'll never go back to that.
Yeah.
If you want to go through the Donner Pass at a certain time of year, even if there's no snow, that's in California, you have to have chains in your car, and they stop you before you go to make sure that you have them.
Wow.
We didn't get, Tom, we didn't get
Tom,
any
you have a
curbing this
question?
year at all. We've gotta put that money in the reserve for the curbing. I mean,
And it's not, that's specifically for Montana.
oh, curbing? No, that's a whole different budget. Anything I do in the base will come out of the storm.
Okay, so we just didn't get to any of this?
No, it rained a little bit.
And how are we doing on Wallace Hill?
I don't know.
Not,
That we can
we're
do.
not doing yet.
No, but that's an easy one, really.
But
And not
it's been a number of
sidewalk
years.
wise, but, yeah, I know. I know, but things pop up a lot of times and you just
Well,
don't
I
get to it.
understand, you know, and the weather's bad,
If
you
you
can't get
wanna
to
jump- if you
everything.
wanna jump to sidewalks or whatever, if I don't know if that one's next, there's a lot of sidewalk on the base that you don't even realize is there because they've grown over with grass that I think we can reclaim. You take the Bobcat down, the mini excavator and just reclaim them, leave them there. The cement's not that bad, I've looked at them. A lot of it's on Connecticut.
I know what you're talking
And the new businesses that are going in, like that one, you know, they put a
great.
sidewalk in, you know, they put a sidewalk there, this kind of sidewalk to nowhere. I know it's future development, the rest of them will put them in there, but we can reclaim that sidewalk. We've got some in the village of Morrisonville we have to reclaim. There again, if I had one or two extra men,
Aren't they grown over?
you
Really?
could take the grass off.
Yeah, that's what's
Follow
called
with a piece
reclaim.
of equipment. That's the reclaiming unit, yeah. You can do it.
Oh, okay.
I've had them walk some of the ones down there, you take a little edge and mine, it takes forever.
And sidewalks too has been, you know, a partnership and going back to the table and having a conversation with building and grounds and the highway department and stuff like that. So, you know, with Rick having just taking on some responsibilities, giving him a little, you know, bit of a time to kind of get his feet underneath him, going into next year, they're gonna start having some conversations about, you know, doing the collaboration between the two departments.
So
So,
we're gonna do
Yeah.
the sidewalk on Ruger Street, because there's sidewalks, you know, where there's a dead area. So we buried it like 3 years ago in anticipation of following year for the sidewalk in. Well, it's not there.
We were just looking to say.
It's settled now, yeah, you're right, we were just letting it settle. Well, it's settled enough now that that should be, you know, now you're gonna have to decide how high up from the road, you want it higher than the road. You know, blacktop it up to the sidewalk and then have 2 inlets for the drainage. And the other, as far as sidewalks go, you know how we got the thing from Clinton County?
yeah.
We're done. I jumped right on it. The one sec they wanted to do, they wanted to do crosswalks.
Yep.
So, new crosswalks are there, everything's straight. Everything's done, the sidewalk repaired,
Awesome.
so.
All right.
Oh, you're talking about where Hannaford is? too?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I saw them out there.
Yeah, and there's gonna be a new section
Yes.
being put in the front, in the
Yes.
plans for the new addition on there.
And it's gonna be beautiful.
Yeah, because there are little tight areas and it was a little bit grassy, so I had to clean that all out and put some blacktop or cement in there. It'll make it a lot easier. and we added the crosswalk in front of campus. That
Yes,
on
I was there when
constructed.
I saw that.
Yeah. Some of that stuff, and then when you first looked at it, it was like, oh my God, everybody was in panic mode, and all that, but just get on it and do it, and had it done quickly.
They did.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Anything else? All right. Enjoy your weekend.
I enjoyed,
Thank you for being with
I
us for
actually
a
did
while.
enjoy listening to everybody else.
Feel free to stay. Yes, feel free to stay.
Have a donut.
Have a
You're supposed to be on
Have a bag of donuts.
Take some donuts.
Take a donut, Jim.
Go to Shattuck.
No, she did not.
Boy, they're really pushing the donuts today, aren't they?
Debbie, do you want coffee?
No, I had a good cup this morning, thanks.
You might want to take.
Oh, that's what we, good, but you know.
You happy both? Okay.
Oh, I can drink coffee cold all day. As long as it's caffeinated, I am like,
When, do we know yet?
No.
It's not coffee if it's decaffeinated.
no. No.
It's gotta have caffeine.
It's gotta have caffeine.
Or it's useless.
I don't understand.
Have water if it's decaffeinated.
You haven't had that conversation with the doctor yet.
I really have very few vices in life, and coffee is.
And gummy bears.
And gummy bears is one of my ones.
Gummy bears, yeah.
And chips.
Oh, chips.
That's right, shit, you're right.
Never mind.
No, well,
I can drink.
one way or the other. I understand what you're saying.
Oh, really?
I live well.
Until noon, it does not show up in the,
Ciao.
any
Have fun, take a donut to your honey.
adversely.
Sugar on it.
Afternoon.
She's
Oh,
diabetic.
no, not at all.
Oh, but she won't eat the
Just trying to
sugar.
wash away. Don't care.
I used to.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Wait till you retire.
No, I hope I'm down.
For the insurance.
Go now.
Yeah?
Well, we can jump on.
She here?
Cups of
Yeah, we can jump on a couple things.
She is here now.
Oh, she is here?
She is here?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's right there.
Oh, okay.
Melanie!
Don't be shy, Mel, you're not
She's
shy.
talking right now.
Oh, okay.
I think you should have two.
We should have
I
set
need
her
a bag
up.
to go for.
We should
Okay,
have.
we'll do that. We'll just move on. Yeah, it's just demonstrated we're doing so.
Hey, mister.
Well, wait a minute, Ken just needs a nap.
He's just thinking about it.
Oh, they're coming in
Oh,
with
and that
tubes.
nutrition bar.
Do you want a donut?
So far.
Sweet enough, thank you.
Now, Erin, you want a donut?
Arguable.
So you're sweet enough?
Do you want a donut?
Mel's a vegan, she can't.
No,
I mean,
Yeah.
Erin is a vegan, she can't.
I could not have the willpower for that kind of lifestyle. I will after I'm done talking, 'cause otherwise
There's a
I'll
bag
have
there you can take with you.
donuts flying.
Oh, I was hoping you'd have a donut.
Yeah.
I don't want to
We
just
got
go
that plug
much
in
later.
there. Mel,
Does he want you not
we
to
got
talk
3
now?
more bags of
Yeah,
over
man,
there. so
actually, it's
I mean,
carrying,
What happened?
carry
You can
out.
help us.
Did Jim bring those in?
No,
No.
I did.
Huh?
You did? Holy smokes. Were they warm when you picked them?
Yes, they were.
They're fresh,
Bankers.
they're not day old.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? Jim only does a day old.
Yeah, they're
That's how
not,
he rolls.
they're not in the
I'm
lunchroom.
not the
These
fry
are
house
fresh.
plus.
All right.
That's funny.
She's got her glasses on, serious, okay.
Well, you know, as you age, some things start to go, and that happens to just be one of them. Unfortunately, they haven't figured out how to do laser to fix that nearsightedness yet. Someday soon, hopefully. Do you want to wait for Tom, or do you just want
Just go.
to get after it?
Let's go.
Yeah, he'll be back.
Well, I guess, how do you guys want to do this? See, question, nothing's really changed much for me. There's probably 2 or 3 lines that have changed a little bit. One would be the contractor expenses, where we put our coaches and instructors for all our programs and things like that. That went up because we are bringing in more revenue. So when the money comes in, we pay the instructors. So that went up to cover the instructors to start with. So when we're adding programs and we're charging for them, I didn't have any place on the budget to pay them, technically. I was in the hole. So we bumped that up a little bit to cover that. So the revenue side will show an increase also, correct?
And you're looking to rework, for example, soccer with folks outside of the town.
Yes,
Yeah,
next
so-
year, all of our sports programs that we previously thought we could not charge a fee for because we get state funding,
Right,
we found out we can charge fees to non-residents.
okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start charging because we've been absorbing a lot of non-residents, just because they like our program and that kind of thing. So we decided to start next year with basketball, soccer, and baseball. Anybody who joins our program is not a resident and not being traded
Because we,
trade
go ahead.
Strata Falls, they'll take the pony softball players and we'll take all the pony baseball players. Just because we don't have enough
Sure.
for our
Oh, okay.
own team. So if we trade like that, we won't charge.
Okay.
Yeah, we share players with local, neighboring towns, so those folks won't be paying.
Okay.
Everybody else
Use the
will.
word exchange.
We share
Free
players.
has a connotation.
We share. That's the
We
word.
share.
We
Share
share
is more
players.
like it.
That's our favorite.
The
Okay.
ones that are in servitude.
So the contract will go up a little bit. We shimmied down, the printing, we've decided after much discussion with Mr. Cashman, that we are going to try next year to do something like a postcard and send it out, let people know, okay, the website's been updated, all the programs for this year are online. Go to our website, if you'd like a printed brochure, come see us, and we will print them as we need them on our
Very good.
printer. So we took that other half that we would have saved and we moved it to a line for a rec assistant, which we used to have. Lost it, put it back in this year in hopes that next summer for 6 weeks we can hire someone part-time, 20 hours a week to help us in the office and in programs.
Okay.
Because as we've been adding and adding and adding, we're out of the office more and more and more. And it's just gotten hard. When you get back from a program, you've got, people we have to help, reservations and all this other stuff. So we've taken this opportunity to take that money, move it, and use that.
And that rec assistant be like what, June to?
It would be 6 weeks, and we were thinking,
July to
first week of July,
You're
so,
heavy.
yeah, right in the middle of the heavy stuff.
And Mel, I appreciate, that was one of those tough conversations that you and I had, because it was not something that you necessarily wanted to reduce the printing, but it was more of kind of a challenge in support of, I'm not telling you to cut, I'm telling, is there other things that you're looking to do differently?
Yep.
So, I'm really excited that we put the release out yesterday for the new website, and this morning I've already heard a couple of people.
Nice.
So, I think it will be really successful.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited about the changes. Sometimes change is a little scary, but
Yeah.
when you can put your brain to work and figure out how you can make it better, that's when it works out well, So we did cut a little bit from a few different lines, like the uniforms, facility rental. There's been some changes with different things there. We're not spending as much on lifeguards' clothing and materials. So we cut a little bit here and there, hoping to make up for some of the additions that we put out. One of the additions would be the website. With our new website, we no longer will use RecTrack, which we've used since RecTrack began back in the dark ages with Bob Robert. We were one of their original customers, and that program we no longer use for activities. We only use it for facilities. And this new website will allow us to do everything in one place. And it also will allow people to go online and look at facilities and see what's available.
Okay.
Which is huge. They won't have to call in and say, I'm looking for a date. They can already look for that date. They can also submit a request through the website.
Nice.
Which at that point, we will approve or deny. We have to, the only reason we're not allowing instant rental is because we need to monitor what they're using the building for. So we need to make that contact and make sure that it's not being used for Avon or paper check or whatever, those kind of things. So that piece will still be there, but it does save us a huge amount of inquiries over the phone.
Well, there's going to be a subsequent increase, I think, in the desire to use those facilities. I've seen that just with the May Courier.
Yep. May Courier's booked right now to the third week in November.
I believe that.
Solid.
It will reduce foot traffic in the
It-
town also because they want to come in and pay
Yeah.
here. So instead, Ricky will get it in his account and then he'll enter it into
Oh,
the
okay.
accounting system, which he's doing now.
And it provides for more customer service
Yes.
because
Yeah.
you're out in the quote-unquote field, right?
Yep.
And the accessibility factor.
Well, the cumbersome part of it was we would do programs, people would sign up for a program, they would have a week to come in and pay for that program. They have to come in and pay. So we would have to go back through and check and see who didn't pay for last week. I mean, it was such a ridiculous thing, so this will be all automatic.
Good.
Listen, I with you guys. Is everybody getting tempted down there?
We've given in.
Oh, no, once you start,
We're
it's all
supposed to
over. It's
pass
like a
this-
Lay's
We're
potato
supposed to
chip.
pass this to them because they're supposed to have an item.
Oh, okay.
Well, now they have to split one.
Oh, we have to go to the other.
Oh, wait a minute, there's more bags, you said.
Yes, there are.
Now, we added a new account
Are those all
for
the
vehicle
same?
repair.
The vehicle repair we were taking, because our vehicles have always been under parks. So they took that line and gave us our own
That's good.
in recreation, so we can better monitor what we need and stuff like that, instead of saying, going to Rick all of a sudden saying, hey, we need new tires, get money in there, that kind of thing.
So we reduced buildings and grounds by that.
Okay.
And we just kind of slid over and
Okay.
a little better accounting there.
Once again, it's like a village tax.
Tom, they literally are all the same types of donuts.
No, they're not.
Don't lick them all.
No, they're different types of sugar donuts.
I was just checking to see if they were all the same, that's all.
No, they're not.
They're not.
So, You get different varieties there, Tom.
I don't think
Okay.
anything else was that much
But
different.
don't lick your
Okay.
fingers and then touch the next one.
All right,
Let's
all right.
see,
Do you want to talk about the equipment
Playground?
playground?
Oh, the capital.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
That's
What we're doing over the winter is we're coming up with a master plan of sorts, just the two of us. It's not gonna be something we go out and spend a bunch of money on, but we're gonna look at the parks and look at revamping how the parks are set up. Playgrounds are, at this point, 17 years old. The lifespan for a playground is typically around 20. And we're coming up on that, which is very normal, but we've never looked at saying, we're gonna have to replace 10 playgrounds starting in 3 years. I mean, they're starting to deteriorate to that point. So what Pat and I talked about was setting up this capital plan where we could start putting some money away so that when we're ready to start doing those projects, it's there. And we don't have to go out and do a huge bond or something like that. I think that was a really, really good thing to do. It's good planning right there. The other thing we're talking about, just to give you a preview of it, is taking our parks and trying to figure out ways with our smaller teams, like in baseball. This year, we've made basically 2 parks for baseball and softball. And that helps maintenance side of it, it helps our side of it, to send referees and stuff. So what we're thinking is maybe somehow we can do the same for soccer and put up permanent soccer fields at some of the parks that aren't being used for baseball, so that we can have soccer fields year-round. People can go play soccer. Also with that is taking playgrounds and doing theme playgrounds at maybe 5 different parks, not having 10 playgrounds anymore. We really need 10 playgrounds. I don't think we do. I think there's parks that don't get used very much. But if we did 5 really nice theme playgrounds around the town, now you've got different places for people to go and have different options. Right now, they're all exactly the same PlayStations at every park, exactly the same. So that would be kind of neat too.
So like you have one at Wallace Hill, right?
Yeah, we'd have like a pirate theme at Wallace Hill, and then we'd have a dinosaur theme and Cumberland Head, that kind of thing. So there would be different types of.
To ask the communities what one they want to be.
Yeah, well, we don't want to open that door too wide, or we'll have.
Then we won't have a park for 10 years.
Right. But, that's just the future. Just thoughts.
Good thing. Good
Good idea.
Yeah.
Just taking the capital campaign or, applying to other departments, I think is a good way to start thinking about those improvements and how to save.
Overall, yeah.
It's not just high, water and wastewater, you just think of capital improvement. Rec department is definitely one.
Yep. Parks are big and parks are old. I mean, the buildings themselves, they've done a pretty good job of trying to get in there and rehab them. Each winter, they take a building and try to, bring them up a little bit. But, they're all old. It's time to.
You're also doing a great job to identify, like hearing the idea of that, okay, maybe we shrink down the playground equipment, but you're reallocating resources, and the storybook trail has taken off, incredibly. Pickleball. So who knows, in 5 years, something else, okay, well, now we need to reduce here, but we bring about something else new, so that's
The
refreshing.
kayaking's taken off too.
Yep. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
On page 22, the workman's comp, Pat, in the last couple of years, it was considerably higher than what we allocated. Is that?
Yeah, I looked at the workers' comp application on that, talked to the company, and the rates have come down on it.
Oh,
yeah.
So it seems to be considerable, which is nice.
That was a major change in workers' comp for
How they
municipalities.
charge it and
Yeah.
what the category is, 'cause
Yeah.
the more you're out of the building, the more they charge you, so. Like Brian is high because he's out, supposed to be out in the field and doing stuff, so
Okay.
just like codes and zoning, construction area, theirs are really high, same thing with highway, so.
Mel and Aaron, so that we can assist you with your professional development, we've been asking this kind of question throughout the budget process. Is there anything else that we can do to support you in that?
No, as long as we have, the conference money's still there. I know we haven't been in a couple of years, but, that kind of thing is there, and we have the option to use that for workshops or things like that along the way that we can get. The hard part with us is everything offered for Parks and Rec is south, central New York, Latham. I mean, everything is away from us. They don't do things up here. Safety meetings too. I mean, I'm the safety coordinator now, and we're looking at safety workshops and things like that, and we're all having to travel so much, but we're trying to get people to come up and do things up here.
And again, I think that's one of the challenges that we continue to try to provide, start inviting people up. We've got things that maybe other communities don't have, start being the host. I mean, we've had GFOA meetings here and a number of other things, and if you need assistance with trying to, entice them to come up here, let's do that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Donuts are good, I don't know, there's perks up here.
Do we have pass these down?
A bike trail for people, what I would call would be a novice trail for mountain biking.
Katyville.
They just go in there, they can go in there.
Actually, the mountain bike groups maintain all the mountain bike trails. Keith Lombard is one of the lead people, Charlie Mitchell is another one. They go in there and they keep stuff trimmed back. When trails start to get really worn, which they do, the dirt starts to get worn away and stuff, they actually reroute some of the trails. They've done that for years, and that's all them. We don't have to do a thing with that. It's all voluntary.
Yeah.
Well done.
I guess
So they do a good job.
these are the same
The
individuals.
college maintaining their involvement with that trail that they had, that they were going to have identifications of various types of fauna.
Oh,
No. The part of it was one of the faculty members was transitioning, and I think one of them actually left the college.
Yeah, we haven't seen too much from the college in the last year or two.
Yeah.
Okay. We still get the group in this, is it this spring for the
Dan
orientation group, yeah. We still get that in there, but. The Wesleyan Church is, in Katyville has offered to do some trail maintenance, so when the leaves are done falling, we're gonna bring them out and help us rake out the trails and stuff like that. So that will be very helpful.
Some of the service associations, Rotary AM, did they help you out with some, not trails, but with some playground maintenance or things like that?
Not this year,
Not this
They
year.
did last year.
Last year.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you very much for being available.
Thank you.
Great job.
No problem. I had just done my dump run, so the timing was perfect.
Thanks for.
Get back to all those chores now. I know.
All right, Ricky,
come on down.
Put away.
Thank you, Mel.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Looking really forward to it, I know you are.
Yesterday when I was out there.
That's all right, go ahead.
One of them has condensation.
I had to take a dump for the road.
One near the beginning of the trip.
Take more than one.
Oh, yeah, there's more over there.
No, only
Share.
one. That's it.
I better get some.
No, well, it was 2 days ago. It was.
Say one for
Did you have to?
No, I'm trying to be good.
Exactly, so I'm thinking, it's gonna ruin the photos underneath if it's not.
Good morning.
What?
Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Very good.
Good, good.
That's a good point, but.
Okay, just so I noticed there was condensation on the inside, I thought, that's not good.
All right.
So I thought I'd just bring it up.
All right, so we got Ricky.
Keeping you on task, folks.
No, I agree.
You're losing this quickly.
I know, I can see that.
He's trying to keep us
You're
on
getting
task.
overly sugared.
It's the donuts that's the.
I have yogurt, not a problem.
What'd you say?
I have yogurt, not a problem.
All right,
Dip it when you're cooking.
that's all you, Mr. Rick.
Okay, good morning,
Good
everybody.
morning, Mr.
Good
Ray.
morning.
Good morning to you.
There's only two things in my budget that I would like to see a little bit of change in. First of all, I would like to see the deputy's salary increase to $12 an hour.
Do we have a deputy?
I've got a lady that's considering.
Who is it?
But-
Can you tell us who it is?
Huh?
What?
Meg was asking who is it that is expressing the interest.
Her name is Zella. She's one of the ladies that goes to Mel's for
Okay.
all of the senior stuff. She's got great qualifications and stuff. She used to work at Wyeth Ayres for 15 years up there, and then she went and did some stuff at the college, and now she's doing stuff at the city school district. But she's a resident of the town, you know. I just,
Will she only do it if it's $12 an hour?
no, she's working and getting $12.50 an hour right now onto it. But, you know, she wants to do something different, so. I just figured it's kind of hard, you know, even running the ad in the paper, running it on the website, you know, all over the place. And when you got, there was on the county civil service thing, when they had a file clerk that works at the social services down there, and she was getting $13.50 an hour to start plus benefits. So how can you can't compete with stuff. And today, when somebody goes to work at McDonald's and makes more than somebody here, and the job here, well, you know yourself, I mean, what it qualifies for, to doing paperwork. And it has to be done right the first time, because you can't go back and, you know, when things are mistakes or something. That's all, and, you know. And by the time you take somebody and train them and walk them through it all, onto it, and they stay for 6-8 months or a year or something, you know, and keep swapping out. Christine would have still been here if she didn't get married and move out of the area, you know, onto it. That's, you know.
She's still in the area, she just moved out.
She just moved out of town.
She moved out of town.
Yeah, certainly that can be under consideration, Ricky. Just I hope, you know, you let us help you with the active recruiting, so that, you know, if you think $12 is going to bring in,
Well,
let us help you with that too.
at least it's something to make it, you know. I mean, when $10 an hour is kind of, you know, when you can go to McDonald's or
Yeah.
Stewart's up here and make more money per hour, and you don't have any specialized thing to do.
I would agree with that, being in the staffing industry right now and learning the rates of pay and what skills people have to make a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
$10 an hour is outrageously low.
I mean, it's just, you can't attract somebody. It's one thing to give them a 10 or 12 or $12 an hour with no benefits, but to give them $10 an hour and nothing, how do you know, attract somebody to come in that wants to work?
So how many hours a week do you see this person working?
Well, they work 4 hours a day, 5 days a week.
20 hours.
Yeah.
So they'll be working 8 to 12,
Yeah.
and then you'll come in whenever you.
I come in at 10 and it's overlap, so if there's stuff that, you know, like we were doing, it was an ideal situation. But. And the only other thing, I would like to see the vitals brought back to $2,000 instead of $800. With the onset of coming in with the mausoleum and everything else. Lately, it's almost every weekend or at night now, when somebody dies, that I have to come back in to do it. And when, you know, it's just, there's no comp time, there's no nothing, it's straight salary what I've been getting, and that went away 3 years ago.
I'm not finding which you're
That's
referring
page
to.
19.
Is it 19? Okay.
They're
I was
two
going
separate,
there. Okay.
Oh.
So,
They're two
So
separate
page
lines.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay.
It's right in the middle of page 9, right under dog control.
I feel like that's just part of being an elected official
Yeah,
at some point.
I agree.
It's just having to go above and beyond and do a little bit extra here and there. It's not, that, we don't count our hours necessarily in these positions.
I understand that, but, you know, it's a requirement to come in and do the stuff, and that means being available 7 days a week, you know, 24 hours a day. Or somebody else in some other department gets called in, they get comp time or whatever.
But that's what I mean, as being an elected official, that's kind of what you sign up for.
I know, but that used to be a line item that was there, and when they had all of this budget constraints and all of that, they cut that right out. So all I'm asking for is, it used to be onto it was over $3,000 at one time.
Ricky, they haven't put back in, or if you go back and you look at the other elected officials, they haven't put those back in.
Yeah, but we're talking two different things here.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
No,
Onto it.
look at what elected officials were paid last year, okay? Look at what they're gonna get paid this year,
Yeah.
okay? They did not change those, okay? Your counselor, your supervisor, okay? Those didn't change.
Judge
All right.
Joyce was called in 3 times this morning before 8 o'clock. That's just the nature of the
Yeah.
job.
Well, and Jim, as highway superintendent, I mean, he runs the roads. So he's got the flexibility in that schedule too. So, Ricky, I think that, you know, this is a tentative budget. They will need to think about where, you know, they want to put the number for the long term. You and I have had the conversation about, I certainly empathize with you needing a deputy though.
Yeah.
I think that certainly has to be a priority to getting somebody in there. I know that and I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but I know Jackie was the one that was trained for hunting licenses and so on and so forth. We need to get somebody trained in the office again.
I can't do anything until after next year.
I'm not saying for the date. I'm just saying that needs to be a priority because people are clamoring to, you know, why doesn't the town of Plattsburgh, why are they not issuing those licenses and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So it's not about computers, it's not about any of that type of stuff. We got to get somebody in and trained. And, you know, having the deputy, and then we also talked about, you know, the overlapping. The one thing that I was disappointed by was Christine didn't really work in the vault. And that was one of the conversations of that deputy was going to get downstairs. Certainly can understand that she needed some training time, but we got to get somebody down there. You know, it's it's crazy. So, you know, I certainly could support a little bit of a raise in the deputies so we can get a good person, but we got to prioritize them working the vault and getting back on those hunting licenses and a couple other things. So
I think we need to, in the long run, or maybe in the short run, work towards $15 an hour as a minimum wage. I think that's important.
But I support what Michael says too, just prioritization of those tasks, Ricky, in terms of, you know, the urgency of the deputy clerk.
I'd be far more willing to consider something after we've been through a probationary period and we know what we have. We go through too many people, Rick, where they come in, and they come in and they're only here for, you know.
I know, it's a stepping stone. They come in and they work for 3 months, 4 months, or whatever, and they're gone. You know, until somebody else, you know, they can get better wages.
We gotta see what we get.
But I think, Ricky, if we're going to say, like, one of the duties is to get into the vault, is that we make sure that, because sometimes that person has the interest and the skill set, which I think Christina did, and I think we overlooked the opportunity and missed the opportunity to get her down there. But that's just my opinion. I just, you know, it's not a criticism, Rick. It's just I'm giving some feedback that anything we can do to help you, we're here.
The DEC training, so Richie should do that and the deputy, so that way we have that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that office should be, we should never be in a spot where we lose that again.
Well, it could have been handled differently if Jackie didn't tell them onto it, that, you know, that she was no longer, what they did, they sent an order of stuff to her instead of to me. It went to Jackie Ballou, town clerk.
Sure. But why weren't you trained to begin with, though, Rick?
I was on it to begin with. I just didn't have the other training onto it.
You have to be certified though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Which the
Most of them, you know.
training you need to attend.
I was,
Jackie
when Amy
attended.
was here, I was on the thing, and that's what they, you know.
That's an
It's all in the
annual,
system.
an annual or...
I had to be certified for retirement because I have a new online program.
Right.
So I had to go to training for that.
Right.
Same thing with this thing. You had to go to training. Jackie went to the training. You did not, so she had it, and it shouldn't fall on her when she's no longer the deputy, then
Then
it's all on you.
But we could have worked onto it, because that's what the lady said. If they had, you know, prior notice to what was going on, that she was working in there and then wasn't working in there, onto it. I had training before.
Yeah, but you gotta have new training.
I
Doesn't matter if you have training with
understand
Amy
that,
was
but
here
they
20 years
offered,
ago.
they offered.
You were the one that terminated her as your deputy, okay?
Because
You're
that-
trying to-
I don't want to even get into that, Marty.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to get into that.
So, I think the large part of what we're saying is, and I don't want to speak for all the board, but I'll speak for myself, and what I feel is the general sentiment is, there is some support to move in a direction that would change the pay scale for the deputy
Right.
on a probationary period to make sure that you get somebody in there with the understanding that both of you are trained in the licensure, you know, so that there is that, you know, backup to the
Yeah, yeah,
backup.
yeah.
And the other part to it is that we get the deputy down in the vault, working on some of that stuff as a main point of entry for the record keeping. I mean, you're kind of you are the record master.
Yeah.
And if there's a requirement or need that you have to do annual training, then that's part of the job and part of the things you gotta do. I mean,
Right, I understand
everybody
that.
has to do that. Whether you're, whatever profession you're in, you have to keep up with the licensure and you have to keep up with your training.
Yep.
Even when it's not required, it's important to keep up.
And just for all of us, it goes back to that customer service, making sure we keep that at the front of our focus.
Anything else for Mr. Ray?
No, thank you, Ricky.
Yep.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is Jackie coming?
She should be.
She should be? Okay. Last I heard she was.
She's not here till 11.
Yeah.
So we-
Oh, okay.
I don't, we, yeah, I was gonna say we can jump in on a couple of
So page 3,
Okay.
that was the town board.
Okay.
So really, well, we've kind of talked about this in a bunch of different pockets already. Salaries for counselors, put forward, as I said last year, to stay flat again. Conferencing is there. So, I mean, there's not too much over the top.
I believe that we should have the same raise for the counselors and the other elected officials, 2.5% as we allow for the others. This needs to be an ongoing basis. When it comes to elected officials, and you say, okay, we want to raise, and you raise it a whole lot, or you decrease it a whole lot, that doesn't help with a budget and stuff like this. And it's not what people would expect. So my position is that it should raise at the same rate, at 2.5%, which would be well under the cap and still, you know, I understand that people keep it the same for political reasons. I just feel it should be not taken out of the political realm in that sense and have it on the same basis as all of the employees.
Is there a way to do a percentage raise for per term instead of annually?
Per each individual?
Term, yeah.
I'd have to look at it, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I think it'd go down, right? I think the
Right,
rule is
and
you can't go down.
that's been my approach. I mean, I've told people that for my four-year term, you know, I knew what the amount was, and I'm rolling with that amount. So, so that might be a worthwhile thing to investigate.
Because I see where you're coming from, Tom, that there should be.
I don't know.
It's worth
worth
looking into,
exploring.
but I don't, on
You
the
have so much
surface, I don't
insurance.
think you
I'm
can
not-
pay.
Staggered terms.
That's what I
One
mean, so for
time.
individual terms, because I do think that anyone who's in a position where they're getting paid, they should be getting compensated fairly, and there should be increases every now and then. It shouldn't just be baseline forever and ever, because at some point, there will need to be increases, and then
Well,
it's gonna be a big
Yeah,
increase.
and with this, it's not even a baseline where it does it, because,
Right.
okay, hey, we're gonna run for election next year, so let's decrease our salary for a couple thousand or something. And this is the way it's been in the
Well,
past.
I don't think we see that now. I don't think we're politicizing what we do on this board, like, at all. But maybe that's how it's been in the past, but I don't think that's what anybody does right now.
Well, I don't think that just because somebody serves 10, 15 years or something on the board, they should get more than the new person. I think that should be the same, but I think that it should be the regular raises that regular employees get.
I don't know about that. Now that I know, I understand what go ahead.
No, I'm glad that this conversation is happening, because I shared the philosophy a year or two ago from my personal perspective. I mean, this is something that, is meant for you folks to hash out from a council perspective. So, I'm just curious to hear what people have to say.
And if I'm following Tom, you're saying you're putting it in the budget, so it may
Yeah.
get passed, it may not get passed. Is that what you're saying?
If
as well?
if we're in a tight situation, no, we don't get a raise the same as anybody else, but in the case like this, we're always at the, I don't know, board say, oh, let's raise our salary to 15,000 or something. I mean, they could do that. Now, I'm not saying to do that, and I'm not saying to pay somebody extra because they're there longer, because somebody new could be way better than somebody that's been on it, which I've experienced as people have come on, who are much better. But it's just a fair way to do it, and it doesn't end up being in the category of, oh, people are going to look and say, oh, they gave themselves a raise. If it was regular, if it was on the same basis as the employees, that's what we would do all the time. People are going to criticize us for whatever they want to criticize us for, but this way, at least it's there. And whoever takes my place or whoever takes your place or whatever, it's the same for them. And no, I'm not, I understand what you're saying. Okay, you're more knowledgeable, and as you work, so you should be getting more. Yeah, okay, but, as far as I'm looking at it, it should be the same for each council. Not accepting deputy supervisor, of course. I mean, it would be the same councilor rate, but we still want to get.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, Tom, because, Meg and I had a really healthy conversation and held flat for this year, because I wanted to, to look at the deputy supervisors, in comparison, let's use Tim, okay? Not a $10,000 or $15,000 increase, but something that has some equity, and the supervisor, God forbid, I got hit by a bus. Meg would take on some responsibilities. Meg already does take on some additional responsibilities, type of stuff. But that's where, the tentative is to bring about some of this, to have some of those conversations.
Well, it seems to me that the deputy supervisor's stipend has been the same for a long, long time, and I think it should be raised, personally.
Yeah, I wanted to introduce that myself.
That's my philosophy and my judgment on this. It should be. You have the choice of who you want to be, whether it's one of the counselors or somebody else, and that's fine too. But it just seems to me that the responsibility to take on and the extra tasks should be somewhat compensated for. I know Marty took on a heck of a lot when he was deputy supervisor, and he was compensated, although, with the amount of things that he ended up saving us and all the things we did, obviously it's not going to match that. But the point is, it's there, and I think it's an incentive and a good thing.
So what are y'all proposing?
I think,
Because the proposal of the tentative budget that I put forward was this. I don't have a number in mind. So if you want to make a recommendation, someone's got to put forth a recommendation for, how to change the number.
But 2.5%, the same as the staff. 2.5% raise for the counselors all across the board. I would have said that for supervisor as well, but you have your own philosophy, so.
I do.
I would speak against that. I think you're making a mistake. I think that you've established a position, and it's been very well received, that you have taken the position that you've taken. I think you make a mistake if you depart from that position in regards to having put, a ceiling on these, on these pay rates. I think I would agree that the deputy supervisor's compensation should be increased. I think there's no question, but the deputy supervisor is called into service to a greater extent, and so I would be in favor of that, I think you're. I don't know specifically, but I think I don't see a problem in any way with that being a $5,000 payment affected.
We have,
may not be enough.
we have put a cap on these salaries because we eliminated health insurance. I mean, that used to be something that counselors had. We've eliminated that.
Those were totally disconnected votes, Tom. The decision regarding health insurance was done well before the decision was made regarding these salaries, okay? And in many instances, the decision regarding health insurance may not have impacted people regarding their compensation. Okay? I think as it turned out, the situation is such that it worked out that people who would have been grandfathered had they sought to be grandfathered, did not seek to be grandfathered. But that was just simply the how it played out because they had other avenues available to them. Okay, but those were totally separate decisions. There was not a quid pro quo involved there, and I don't think you should be trying to imply that.
I'm not looking at it's quid pro quo. I'm just looking at the total budget and what it used to be, and I know how many people were on medical coverage and how much the cost of that is, and it was quite substantial. I'm still arguing for just the percentage raise that the regular employees get, and regardless of I know we don't have the health care.
Tom, I'm sorry. You've made your argument. Okay, I think your argument was well expressed, okay? I thought it was now time for me to make a comment as to what I thought, all right? And basically I'm trying to express why I don't agree with that. That's all, okay?
And I would like
and I don't think, okay, it needs, I don't think we need to have you go back and go through the whole explanation of why you believe.
No, okay, and I will say that I've been consistent on this position for many years.
Yes, you have.
Sure. So, what, I'm gonna do.
I would propose $5,000 increase as the deputy supervisor's increase to $5,000. And I propose it would be 2.5% for the counselors.
Now, let me go back to the deputy supervisor thing for a moment, because I want this clarified from what you're recommending earlier. Are you then recommending a 2.5% increase to the deputy supervisor allocation annually as well?
5K.
For the deputy supervisor?
5K.
Yes.
Moving
forward?
As the counselors, you get the person get 2.5%.
No, let me, I'm isolating the question, okay? The deputy supervisor, it's really kind of in its own line item, okay? To increase that allocation to $5,000, okay? Are you then saying in future years, the 2.5% be applied to that as well?
Well, that would be logical.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. And I would like to further explore this with Meg in particular and find parity in the other deputy positions with the highway superintendent, for example. I'm not opposed to potentially going to five, but I'd like to explore that a little bit more.
Yeah, I support that, Michael, and it has nothing to do with the person.
No.
As I look to my left, but it is that parity and some homework that needs to be done.
So, but the, and as far as, because there are what I believe to be actually I would even argue 4 in general interpretations of moving this forward. Meg was inquiring, and I'm curious as well if it can be applied based on, terms of period. You're asking for a true 2.5%. Marty has a different thought and philosophy. Let me get some information before a number is applied.
Well, as I understand it, once we adopt this at the next meeting, then they can't be changed.
For the year.
Right, but I'm in it. We're not adopting the budget today. I mean, this is a work session, so I've got to, if people want answers to questions, then you got to give, a day or two to be able to make that determination.
Marty, could I ask for clarification on what you're putting forward? I'm not sure.
Yeah, my recommendation was that the deputy supervisor,
I understood that part, but I mean for the board members.
I thought that it remained the way it is expressed in the budget as presented. Okay. I'd make a comment, and I'm not trying to get into doing what I just asked Tom not to do, but I would just offer a comment. If we got into a situation where there were to be an actual 2.5%, this is exactly how government got into the mess government is in.
Yes.
Okay, I would tell you that as a counselor, if we had this kind of differentiation based on years of service, et cetera, I'd probably be being paid about $30,000 a year to be a counselor this year.
So little.
Okay, I think that's a problem with that. I think each person that runs for the office knows what the office pays when they run for the office. And I think that's Mike's position. I think that's a.
And just so people are clear, I mean, this is how far back this value goes for me. Okay, our student government at SUNY Plattsburgh. Okay, now I'm serious. I mean, it may sound goofy to you, but this is like one of those core values that I have, that the only student government president in the SUNY system that didn't receive educational payment stipends is SUNY Plattsburgh. And there was the philosophy of student serving students. And I'm not finger wagging to say that counselors shouldn't receive salary. I received a salary, but I also recognize that, and I said it even when I was a counselor, if there was an increase during my term as a council person, I would return the balance of the increase to the town. because I feel as though when you run, you know what the amount is for your term, accept that for your term, and so on and so forth. That's not to say that other philosophies are different, or, it's not to even to judge people's values. I just want people to understand, it goes far back. It's not a political thing. It's truly a philosophy and a value that comes back from that.
Under that, Marty's and your philosophy on that, when would it be ever appropriate to even consider giving a raise? 10 years, 20 years?
That's a good question too.
Right, and I think that's why I'm intrigued from the idea of, the term. You know what I mean? If you were to do it, so then it's locked in though. You know what I mean? Like, your increase is going to be for that term.
And if we were all elected at the same time, that would be somewhat fair, because we wouldn't be voting on our own salaries, we'd be voting on the future board salaries. But since we're staggered, some of us are still gonna, quote unquote,
Are you saying that government isn't black and white?
Yeah, sort of.
Well,
No,
I want to say one more thing, and then I have a question, and it's that I think where we are in government right now is we have the ability to actually measure our effectiveness in a lot of ways, and I think we're all effective right now. We're staying under the tax cap. We're able to have these really healthy conversations out in the open. First of all, that's huge. But there's so many programs out there, state and otherwise, where there's money available, and it's really just about how willing we are to take the steps to get these funds, to bring them in, and that's measurable revenue into our town. So if we're measuring what kind of money we're bringing in, we're able to measure our effectiveness, and I think that we should be compensated on that.
well, I might think that Barb brings in more than I do. More effective than I am. Of course. How are you gonna measure that?
But if someone that's
Of course.
new, but if someone is new, so this open discussion is healthy. We need to put elephants on the table and so forth. Because what I'm finding is that I think with government, there's always sort of the drive to be an elected official. And I don't want to use the word gravy train, but I mean, people kind of get driven by the extra income. And it sounds sappy, but I'm really thrilled that I was elected. So, I'm not expecting any raise at all. But to your point, measuring the performance of us through those ways, I think, does speak to the volume. And eventually, maybe that should be considered as a way to.
We need to operate like a business.
Yes.
And that's how business works.
Okay.
And
Well,
my question would be to Debbie. I'm interested in your opinion.
You want to know the truth?
Well, yeah.
Well, you're never shy to say that.
That's why
Don't
I'm
pull
asking.
back now.
Well, I happen to agree with Marty. Don't have a heart attack. I believe that elected officials are public servants first. That most of you have other jobs or have had other jobs, Marty did. You didn't come for the gravy train. You came to serve the public. Should you be extra compensated? I believe that you're pretty well compensated if you look around all the other towns out there. Even Burlington, as big as it is, their government did not take salaries, period, for many, many years, until just a couple years ago. So, a raise, when is a raise merited? I think that's something that needs to be looked at. I take offense at what Tom says, because he's sitting here thinking he should be paid 2.5%. Yet at the last public meeting, he said veterans who've laid down their lives should not get any kind of tax break. And many of those are maimed, and maybe they're Cold War, but a lot of them did serve, and they served in active wars because wars overlap. And he doesn't think that they should be given any kind of tax break, and yet he believes to work on the town board, should be given a 2.5% raise annually. I'm offended by that.
I don't see it obviously that way, but
Obviously.
and I'm not looking at this from the standpoint necessarily of me. I'm okay, not a problem. But I do know that there are many people out there of lower income or less means, it's very expensive to even consider running for office. And I would like to see more opportunity for all classes of people to be able to run for office. And that's my thinking in the background of this whole thing, which is the same thing as I feel that, $15 an hour should be the minimum wage. So, no, I'm not looking at it as, if I had wanted to be, get into this for the money, obviously, I would have done something else, a county legislature or, some other place, but, I'm not. But I think that this is what the people in the future need.
The only thing that I can offer you as town supervisor at this point is, we're asking Tom not to repeat himself, Marty to repeat himself, or me, but I will do it and I'll own it. You know my philosophy. I will do some research and bring it back to you as a board, though, for some options. We do have a resolution that will be coming forward sooner rather than later, because it's public hearing. I think that's also a good opportunity. We serve the public, to hear what the public has to say about that. It will not impact me directly, and others could also make a similar pledge privately, publicly, what have you, and say if it were to increase, that any increase would go back to the coffers. So there's a number of things there. But I do want to, again, just talk about, that's why as a very similar vein, what I did with Jim as our town council right now, just because of the change of some things that are going on, is when you start to pivot your the way things are coming to the board and the town, is trying to allocate the resources to where they are going with the trends. It's not a judgment on Jim. I think Jim is a good lawyer in a lot of things that he does. He, however, does not have expertise in certain areas. If I have $5 to spend, and I need somebody that's going to cost me $3, I got to put the $3 towards wherever I can spend it. That's going to get me what my results are. So that's the big stuff there. I think that we could talk about this at length, and we'll continue those conversations. People should do some research as well. But as I've stated, and I'll end on this, is Patrick and I work on this tentative budget. The numbers that are there are based upon what I put forward through my philosophy as a responsibility to present the tentative budget. And it's your responsibility to respond and say, what do you think works there? So Meg and I will have some more conversation.
I think you've made that very clear.
So, all right.
Good. One other note, on conferences, we budgeted for New York City. We could decide who's going early, because we want to book our rooms earlier, so we can reserve the right rooms.
I know I've said in the past, I don't plan on going every year. This is a year that I do plan on going, just as an FYI, so.
And I would just like to say, sorry, Marty.
No, go ahead.
No, depending on the results of an election, obviously. I didn't want to go first year or second year, but I think if I get into a re-election term, that it's probably a good time for me to go.
Sure.
I think there's great benefit in going. I would really like to go again. That's where I learned about our Clean Energy Communities program, which we successfully implemented this year. That will get us $100,000. It's well worth it, I think, to go and learn about these programs and meet the people that can help us navigate those channels and bring money in for programs.
I think one of the things whoever goes to represent the board this upcoming year, you want to make sure you go to the association meeting. And one of the things that you may want to do is challenge them to look at why they're going to continue to meet in the city of New York when the meeting is getting smaller and smaller and
Good
smaller.
point.
And
Good point.
and just,
And they should look to meet outside the city.
yeah, and just so you know, I've actually been asked to serve on the resolutions committee this year. I honestly don't know how the hell that happened. So I don't know if I don't know if they were looking for, you know, diversity in the state and stuff like that.
The young white, blonde-haired guy got picked.
Yeah, so, but yeah, so, okay.
Yeah, good point, Maureen.
I also think it is one of those things that you build camaraderie
Yes.
with the people.
Oh, no
The more
question.
you're able to go, and you learn more every year, and it's compounded
I've said
beneficial.
Yeah.
repeatedly, the real value is the contacts that you make. And those contacts can exist in people who are in similar positions that you're in. They can exist in people that you meet that are in state office positions that are there, that you just are able to, you know, to communicate with, you know, and those are priceless.
Yeah.
I think it allows you to build up expertise as well, and
Right.
I don't find it unreasonable to think that Cashman could, you know, be a presenter at the Association of Towns on behalf of our town.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that there isn't a value in the conference. I'm just trying to balance it out with other things that are going on too. You know, so, I mean, the first year that I went, there was high value and definitely had those connections and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, and my recommendation is from a readiness level. Sometimes there's a
Yes.
readiness level, so
Absolutely.
the first 2 years for me has been really ramp up and learn all the moving parts, so
So
that's why.
if we could just, by the end of November, let us,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
can make the revision. So Jackie's here.
Come on down,
Jackie.
Just one more
Hey,
question. How
Jackie.
many people do you have budgeted?
Yeah, did you say 2?
Yeah,
2 plus he
That-
has 1.
Oh, you have one in your budget, right?
So we have budget for 3.
we're trying to figure out though, because.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Morning, Jackie.
Good morning, everyone.
How do you do?
Hi, Karen.
Morning.
Is it still morning? Oh,
It is.
yes, it is.
It is.
We have an hour.
We're on page 7, you're on.
Okay, seven.
I'm on
Because they had the
page
whole book.
1.
They had the whole book.
Page one. Page seven.
That's all I have is one page.
Start with a book page. Okay.
Anything that you want to highlight? I know that you've spent a lot of money in pens.
I don't spend any money in pens. I have free pens in my office from the bank and some public officials that like to give out pens.
So,
Okay.
There's really not a lot to Jackie's budget, so.
Just, let me see here.
Public service at its finest.
Yes.
Exactly.
one of the things that, and there was some conversation, Ricky was getting a little bit of defensive, and I can understand a little bit, but, in anticipation of him hiring a deputy and having that conversation about possibly looking at increasing, I had made the recommendation that we increase Elaine's deputy salary. She's been here, I mean, how long has she actually?
6 years. maybe?
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah, so,
At least, yeah.
okay.
You have some
What's
strong
the per
deputies
hour?
in your stead.
What do,
That's
7 years.
what do we put it at the per hour for the,
15.
15, so.
15?
That's what
I saw there was an adjustment
Yeah,
for that,
but
right?
again,
So,
I
you know, you talk
understand.
about the salary compression of different things and, you know, so.
And the experience, and the fact that she's
experience and-
doing the job, and we need to know that of the other.
And the fact that she doesn't get paid holidays or paid vacation
Yep.
or holidays.
And she's beyond reliable.
and the
Yes.
coverage, you know, Jackie, again, not critiquing
Those two,
yours.
right.
We're good right there.
That's, you know, sort of above and beyond. I mean,
Right.
she's here early in the morning, you know, when I'm here early in the morning because I got to get to my next destination and I'm able to pay my water bill and.
She's certainly an asset to the town.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Customer
So,
service all over there.
you know, I want to put that out there as, you know, that was part of the narrative and so. Is there anything else you want to kind of highlight in your budget, Jackie? You're kind of one of the,
I think it's pretty basic. It's the same as it always is every year. I don't think there's been huge change in anything. So that's all we know. I guess we got some computer services in there. Would that be for a new computer, should I need one?
Where are you, which line?
Where's
No, that's sort of okay. That's your basics.
basic, so I guess I won't get one this year, next year
No,
maybe.
you have a spot up here. How old are you from, yeah, but.
I got one that's really,
You got $1,000 in there for.
okay.
This comes out
So
of
other than
capital.
that, I don't anticipate anything, that I need anything other than just salary for that we do.
Professional development wise, you're in the lane for what you need to do your
Yeah.
You've
job.
got a conference budget, so,
We do,
yeah.
we do. Neither one of us have been to one in several years. It's probably
Okay.
time that we,
When did you go to New York City then?
New York City was
3 years?
the year you, the first year you went.
Oh, right.
How long ago was that? 4 years ago, maybe? 5?
4. No, we were at 4.
What conference are you going to? Is it this year?
I don't know that we're gonna go to any. It depends on what's on the agenda. If it looks like it's something that's gonna benefit us, we'll go. If it's something that's just a routine, we probably won't spend the money to go.
Or if there's anything else that can help your professional
Right,
development, just to
exactly,
kind of look at it a
exactly.
Do
different
they do
way.
anything that has value for you?
Oh, they're always-
Around, presentations that are else,
They do.
other than New York City?
They do, oh, yes. And every year it's like, it's either Buffalo or Lake Placid.
Mm-hmm. And do you look at those?
We do.
Yeah.
We do. If there's something on there that looks like it's something we can benefit from.
Mm-hmm.
But I have learned a lot in some of the conferences that have made my office really efficient by attending them. So they are beneficial, but you gotta look at, see what the presentation is. And
Yeah.
it's- Yeah. Mhm. So.
All right, thanks for dropping by.
Yeah.
Is this a cameo appearance? That's what I would call it.
All right, well, we gotta keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's because you do such a good job.
Well,
Thank you,
yeah,
Jackie.
we don't wanna underestimate what we do.
No, you don't.
I mean, this month alone, we collected 16 million. I don't even wanna announce how much in cash.
Mhm.
So it's, we're obviously, our office is busy, but it's run very efficient, and that's all I can say.
Good
Yeah.
job.
Okay,
Thanks for what
thank
you do,
you.
Jackie.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming in too on Saturday.
yeah, thank you.
She does a very good job of hiring deputies.
Huh?
She does a very good job
Yes.
of hiring
She
deputies.
does a good job.
Yes.
Managing.
Yes.
Giving,
And hiring
being
and managing
grateful.
very good people. Who was it before? Was it Judy before?
Judy.
She was really good.
She was excellent.
Oh,
She hires somebody, if they come in, she's gonna have a good person. They're gonna-
She treats them well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and makes it a
But I
place
appreciate
to come to work.
We asked you, so we did.
exactly.
It goes a long, long
Yeah.
way.
And they start out not highly.
But it really is, that's a public service role. She's not the lowest one. It's like,
Minimum wage is going up too, so that's kind of driving us hard. We're gonna have to pay more, so.
But, you could make $15 an hour, and that's, Ricky's not gonna end up bringing anything better for the.
Difficult issue, it's a big issue, it really needs to be sorted out, not just saying, well, at the last minute, here's what I.
And you have to retain people, by the time you
I think it's ongoing. It needs an
Yes.
How much money does that
Yes,
cost
I
you?
think we will be doing that.
People don't realize how much it costs to train people.
Well, how he goes about it.
I didn't address the deputies' increase. I don't have a problem with that.
thank you. Don't trip, okay?
Oy.
Because then she'd have to take over.
What's up next?
Town supervisor, page.
Oh my God, I've
You
been
can't
waiting.
think
So he has to address everything.
Big changes in there.
Oh, yeah. big-
Huge. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Crazy, right?
11 lines, I don't know.
I don't know.
We have time.
we
And one of
covered,
them you've already worked on.
well, really covered all of them,
Yeah.
except, insurance.
Supplies, you didn't do supplies yet. Pens.
Pens,
Pens.
maybe.
You were just
Maybe paper, maybe paper clips.
Maybe
giving
paper
Jackie a
clips.
hard time about pens.
Patrick, I noticed on the planning department, a big drop in social security. That was because of Phil's not here.
Phil's retirement,
That's what
so
I
we
thought.
bumped up his salary in anticipation of that.
I see, okay, so that wiped out the social
Yeah.
security. That social security, I'm assuming, is what you have to take out of people's checks.
Yep, yep.
And match.
Yeah,
For
that's,
the term.
yeah, I know.
Complete sense, but
Social Security and Medicare.
I wanted to do research.
Yeah,
We put them all
exactly.
together.
I told Tom, I said, you know, that's.
Oh, that's both combined?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
It's,
okay.
point
Yeah, because, yeah, I didn't see any line for the Medicare
It's
thing.
just the same- It's the same thing.
Well, he's paying the
What's that,
same
the-
place.
Yeah, we do.
And I also think 2.5% every year is crazy.
Have you gotten any health insurance quotes yet, or are you just making an assumption?
We've been working with,
Made an assumption, and then after the assumption,
No, not making
we
it.
got our, what it's actually gonna be.
yeah, we've worked with Alex and,
We dropped a little bit,
yeah.
0.3%.
What percent?
0.3% on it now, so
Oh,
it wasn't much. Well, they usually send us a letter in July or August saying what they're going to the insurance board with, so I usually run with that number. And this year it actually went up instead of down. Because usually it goes down.
What'd you say?
Boy,
It's the old one.
it's gonna be interesting to see
Yes, it is.
what's gonna go on with this.
across state lines and all that stuff?
Well, some of that isn't gonna happen.
Can you even do
No,
that?
it's not. I mean, it's still just this cloud that nobody knows is going on.
The bigger
Well,
states,
but
the
it's-
New Yorks, the
I'm curious-
Connecticut's, the California.
But I'm curious to see,
You know,
because
those
there's the
states-
responsibility of the higher authority of
They-
government, and then.
They were
It's gonna
states that
be-
were not terribly affected.
Anyway,
All right,
Because
that already set everything
I'm
up.
gonna plug and
New
move,
York
and move
really
forward.
set the standards.
Yeah.
Indeed.
We're at
Yeah,
supervisor.
okay.
Yeah.
And they're not gonna sit by and say,
Okay.
what they're
All
gonna
right.
say
Let's get
is,
back
Supervisor,
You wanna
page
sell
6.
insurance?
Six, good.
the people in the state of New York, your insurance has to have these standards.
Okay,
Yeah, you're right.
all right.
You're right.
We had a couple of this, salary deputy, we'll have that conversation. General supplies, anything from, general supplies. I mean, it's.
Donuts.
Yeah, I think in general, you've learned that I'm not a big
Yes.
spender. So, as far as insurance goes, leaving options available for Olivia and I to take the family plan. So that's really kind of the big swing.
Well, I won't
So,
go into that.
Big announcement?
Did you say, no, I don't have it.
I'm happy if you want to. I'm
he's
asking
the-
Tom not to go in on your behalf.
So, no, I have no
that's
big, I
good.
have no big
You
announcement.
have open enrollment is important, so,
So,
yeah. Thank
All
you,
right,
Michael.
so.
Do you have to have that in place before you have the announcement, or I don't know? Or can you get that in place after you have the
It's
announcement?
a qualifying event, you would be able to get it in place now.
I'm gonna say, yeah, how does that work?
But it's,
That's an
my,
You still have to put it there just in case.
my preference would be to be prepared and, from a more conservative standpoint, budgetary, and so on and so forth.
And if
So-
you don't use it, you got money left over.
so.
We're not buying any animal coverage. Huh?
No, we're not, no,
Not yet.
there's no pet insurance
Okay, Michael.
or anything.
Okay, we better get going.
Okay,
Yeah.
moving along, as Michael would say.
Losing control here,
We
Michael.
really were going at a good
Yeah, we were,
we
Michael,
were.
until you
Okay, let's go to audit.
dragged it over in. Oh, after that,
That will calm everybody.
Lord,
right now.
The audit calms us down.
yeah.
So for 2018, it's up to 31,000 because they do a review
Right.
of town clerk, tax receiver, and both justices, which is timely this year because we have Justice Pat retiring, so
Yes.
he'll go through his accounts and check. It will go back down.
And that's
I
every
think, to
3 years, you said,
26,500.
right?
Yeah, it's a 3-year
Yeah.
contract we have.
Okay.
So
And
We'll go down.
I know we're trying to go at this fast, but this company was one of the best decisions
Nice.
so far that we have made as a board.
Yeah.
Their experience in municipal auditing is really worth making the transition, so.
And the timeline they proposed to us in terms of how we got the information, the preliminary report.
Yeah, so next
That's
year
the right-
we will do the audit, starting around March 15th.
Oh,
we're gonna start,
that's
so we
nice.
can get it early, have
Yeah.
it done, file our AUD all at the same time,
Yes.
so we're good. So we can actually have our financials audited before we file the AUD.
Before we file
so-
it,
Yep,
okay.
so it'll work out good.
All right, good for that.
Next page is page 10, town attorney.
Okay.
They have a whole bunch of line items also. Salary stayed the same. For June, Matt Favreau is down a little bit from what CJ had, so that's the only really changes that's on there.
You said page 10? Okay,
Yep.
now I got it. Yep, excuse me.
On to page 11 is the accounting office. I did bump up the conferences for Jackie, Nikki and myself.
Okay.
I'm going to attend the GFOA conference next, actually with the audit being done earlier, I'll be able to attend this year.
Okay, good.
Down in Albany, they have a 2-day work intense classes that I would like to take to kind of update on the new processes, cash management, debt service, all kinds of different things. So that's why I bumped that up. Plus Nikki wants to do a little more HR training, which we never seem to get enough HR
That's right.
training. So we did look at the county for shared services on HR, but that didn't seem to go anywhere. So
Still
Will you
staying,
continue?
still
staying on.
staying
Okay.
hopeful.
Okay.
so.
Elections.
Like,
Is anybody challenging the numbers the county's throwing out?
Crazy.
They're,
It is crazy.
This year, okay, last year, we had, umpty-ump primaries
yep.
and all kinds of people on the ballot, whatever. Not this year,
Yeah.
so my question is, where's that number coming from?
this is their projected budget. It doesn't mean that's what it's actually going to end up as. Because they will give us a budget, and it's just I think it's their worst case scenario. So then if it doesn't happen, we don't get billed as much.
But we don't
But
have
does
any control over
anybody
it.
get, they're not real good on handing out detailed information as to how they arrive at numbers.
I can send that to you.
Huh?
I can send that to you. They send it to Michael and I.
Yeah, let me just jump into a bit of the conversation of the Town Supervisors Association has had conversations with the election commissioners in past. We've had the election commissioners here in past. I don't think that they have not heard the concern, but I also don't see that changing right now. I mean, that they're giving us projection. As Pat said, it may not be the final number, but I don't want to be in a position in the budget if an agency, for lack of better terms, or the BOE have given us a number, and then it far exceeds a number that we've not used, from your projections. I think would be unwise to do that. So, I think they're probably, are folks receiving increases in pay for supervisors
We have
and
to do a
stuff?
class every year, and they did say there
Yeah.
would be increase in pay for election workers. I have no idea how much, that won't be a lot.
Right, but I mean, it's,
And really for the whole day you're there.
No,
What is
you're
it? Is
there-
it
you're-
$100?
You're there from 5,
Yeah.
big bucks, from 5 till 10 usually,
Yeah.
because you have to be there at 5, and you make about $150.
Right. It's crazy.
I don't know. It's not long.
Has everyone here done it?
I've done it.
I've done it.
Yeah.
It's a long day.
It's a long
Very
day.
They wouldn't let
You're
me
here
do
at
it.
5:30. Well,
It's painfully
you want
long.
to raise.
Especially when
Like,
there's
actually
nothing to
hurt.
do, if you don't have a lot of people, it's like
yeah.
the big snore. And some, we probably won't have a lot this year. I
Marching
It might be
forward.
like that this year.
Marching forward.
Marching forward would be a
What's
big
that?
year.
What page?
Yeah.
Okay.
But this year, I mean,
Bottom 11,
Major
I got you.
primary.
bottom 11 and 12.
Already jumped right into election, so we're on to
Okay. good, because I
The
was.
next one is where are we? Central Services.
Central
This is
Service.
a category that the services are shared throughout the whole town, so it's kind of like paper we share out of here, because everybody comes in, grabs paper, so instead of trying to track what each office and ordering, it just all gets put in here. This is where we have a vehicle put in here for the town, because it's shared with the court. Supervisor, I use it, assessing, planning, code, or in planning, not code, so, so we're looking at, to get rid of a couple of vehicles and replace it with one next year, because we have a couple of Malibus that are from 2004.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I don't want to.
That's my favorite vehicle. And then we have the Jeep is a 2006 that has almost 100,000 miles on it, and that's kind of on its last leg anyway, so.
So you're gonna go what, from 4 to 3? Or
Yeah,
Maybe.
we're looking at some other options.
Okay.
Because it's better to drive the vehicles.
Uh-huh.
You know, like both our Malibus have, 38,000 miles on them from 2004. And what we're finding is that the brakes go just because they're sitting there, so. So we'll maybe tone it down and drive it more, so.
Yeah.
Otherwise than that, there's no big surprises on here.
Software's gonna be in this?
Software's in there, I
Okay.
said the computer service is
Yep.
at 38,000, so.
Okay.
And we're researching that, starting next week, we have doing a little
That's-
extra work on that, so. Any other questions on central services? Next one's insurance. Page 17. So the insurance bill is allocated between highway and highway, water, and the general fund. The highway portion is paid out of general fund for the building part of it, so that's what you're seeing here, so. I dropped it down because we thought we were getting a bigger increase last year, so that's why you see a change in the unallocated insurance in the general fund.
Yeah.
So overall, it's dropped down about $5,000, so. And that usually goes up maybe, I've been trending about 5% a year, so it's not huge, but, Association of Towns, $1,500, that's been, seems like forever, and that is definitely well worth the money on that.
Yeah.
I know we use that all the time, so.
I believe, I can't say for certain, but I believe that they're looking to hold that for another year or so.
At the bottom of 17, we have the contingent account, 30,000. That's been steady, we keep it there, that's just in case something out of the blue comes up that we don't anticipate, so. Are we okay with that number? Dog control officer?
I had shared with folks that I had hoped through the shared services panel to have that go over to the county. It was a long and convoluted way of how it didn't happen. However, I can tell you that several towns and I have already continued the conversation with the sheriff's department, and we are continuing to see if we can work something out. And interestingly enough, after the dog attack down in Peru, there was a number of people that kind of went, whoa. So I don't know if that will inspire some changes and stuff, but Dave is still staying with us, and we continue to troubleshoot where appropriate. So.
I think this is one, I say this every time we talk about the shared services. This is being forced, so we're having the conversations that we should have been having anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And when these programs like dog control and other things that just make sense start to happen, we're gonna look at this in a few years down the road and continue to wonder how we went along so long without doing these common sense things.
Sure. I mean, this one in particular, I've been working on for 2 years. I mean, it's been so frustrating. I mean,
if you'll allow me, I'll just tell you a small story. I can remember, I had to campaign 1 year by myself, and that was at a time when we used to have packs of dogs. They're just like Champlain Park, Cliff Haven. I came back in and I said, we're gonna have a leash law in the town of Plattsburgh. And your grandfather said, oh, we can't do that. And I said, we're gonna do that, or at least I'm gonna introduce it, and people are gonna have to vote no. Because I said, there are mothers who cannot walk their children in a baby carriage. And so we worked on it. But the thing we did, proposed that we would do it where we had water districts, because that indicated we had, a gathering of people.
Yeah.
And it made sense. And that was the only place we put it in place. So that if you were out, and for example, at that time, Katyville didn't have a water district, so there was not going to be a leash law in Katyville, all right? And it went through without any problems whatsoever, to Arthur's astonishment. Okay. And in fact, he owed me a little bit of money on that one. Okay. And what he really was astonished about was 3 years later, we were served with petitions from around the town and the rest of the citizenry who wanted that law townwide. And it went through. We put it up and it went through. Yeah. So when there is this reluctance that I hear out there, in the county, I understand what it is and I understand where it's coming from. But what certain people aren't hearing, okay, are those people, okay, who really want there to be dog control where they live.
And let me be clear, the sheriff's department has not been against this either. It's finding a way to facilitate it in a cost-effective and efficient manner. So, all right, let's keep going.
Page 20, JCEO.
Yes.
Okay.
JCEO made a request. They are in a similar position as they were last year. Told them that we would really kind of hold off until this year to see where things were falling with pay increases, coming across the board. They have held for a number of years, and services continue to be increased. I think that at this point, obviously based upon the numbers that I put in the tentative, I can support it this year. I did talk to Bruce and say, there is a very good chance though that it's going to be held at that number for a couple of years moving forward again though. Or have to look at some different modeling and stuff like that, so.
And it hasn't been done since 2013. Okay. Pat?
Yeah, this has been the rate since 2013. And I think they said they were being affected by the minimum wage
Yes.
also. So.
Yep, so.
Bruce won the 50/50 in Rotary, which was up to $5,000. So you might want to call him and tell him that you heard that he hit the $5,000.
So we don't have to bump this up?
So we don't have to go as high as they requested.
Surplus.
All right.
All right,
Okay,
any questions?
no.
Okay. All right, 23, the historian.
Really what we're looking at is really the same. So.
Equipment capital outlay is for computer.
Yeah. And once in a while, they do some
Is that something
kiosk
that's-
one year, or
Yeah.
we purchase some different thing.
Yeah.
So the one that now is sort of outdated, the computer, and
Yeah, yeah. Well, we do, Tom, we have a computer list of all the computers in the town that we maintain.
Yeah.
And then we look, when it gets to about the 5 or 6 year range, we put them on here, because that shows you, we're getting close to the lifetime.
so that's being used.
And in large part too, Dick did have some knee surgery
Yeah.
this year. And I think he was hurting pretty bad leading up to it. So, but I think he's gonna be back in action, starting next week, so.
Okay.
We good on that one?
Yeah.
All right, next one is community services, and complete streets on there. Some of this is contractual expense of 1,500 is life flight.
Yep.
And then other, we use federal Plattsburgh, take out an ad in there.
this the place to add purchase of land?
For what?
Just for the town, you know, have a line item there for when we need land.
I don't think.
Sure. Next.
So I think we should put $1,000 in purchase of land.
Have we given any thought to try to acquire some additional land next door?
I think that from my perspective, there's two things. One is, can we manage the projects that we have going forward right now? And I think we're in a position where we're managing that type of stuff. I don't think we're in a need for acquisition of anything at the moment. So to put placeholder stuff in there, I don't think that there's as much value in it. $1,000, we're not gonna get, you know.
Well, I'm not talking 1,000.
No, but I realize that.
We gotta start it. Every year I bring it up and we never start it. Yeah, sure, I'd like to put 30,000 or 50,000 or 100,0and in, but we don't have that kind of money, so.
But if we don't
Think
make a
about. I
move,
think so, think about.
if we don't make a move, say on that piece of land, okay, we run the risk that, you know, our neighbors across the way are gonna, you know, step up and buy it.
I can almost guarantee it. They have a parcel right next to it that they've now opted not to do development because it's too expensive. So, and of all the places that new companies are coming, I don't think Banker Road is the hot spot where people want to be.
Mhm.
So I think we're in a better position right now to hold off and hedge our bets than to chase land and development for that. You know, I've talked with Woody, for example, for a salt shed. Jeff Farrell in the governor's office said that they're anticipating some money coming down the pike in the next couple of years for salt shed because they're reevaluating water and, you know, all that type of stuff. Why go after something that we think that there may be some allocations moving forward on that? So we're not ready to build tomorrow, and I don't think we're ready to build next year. So my personal philosophy is I'd rather hold off.
I was just looking at where you locate things and where it's convenient and where there's less transportation that needs to be done from one department or part of the department to the other in terms of what they need. And that's one of the reasons I'd like to see it in, but I understand.
So what would you like to be put over there on this?
What's that?
What would you like to be put over there? So if we buy that property, what do you think it's for?
I'm not saying that necessarily that particular property.
No, but.
Marty was asking about that.
Yeah, so I guess I'm just trying to figure out, like, if I'm working on a multi-year plan, you want to purchase property for what purpose, though, I guess?
Well, it's being bought up, pretty much all the property being bought up by speculators in this area and from outside, and there might be some need for us to have those in the future and to have agricultural land and things like that available. It might not necessarily be strictly for town use, it might be rented out to people who use it, or in the case of this, if we needed additional land to locate our buildings or our piles and things like that, that would be another reason. So there's a number of reasons, and there's more than that, but that's...
Honestly, I think that because we're moving forward with our comprehensive land use plan, I think that's a good filter to have some of those additional conversations.
Mine was a little more oriented toward the fact that this building is just about maxed right now.
Right.
And there may be a need for us to take one or more than one department and move them into another facility at some time in the near future. And then you have the question of, okay, are you going to divide your workforce into separate locations, or, you know, do you want to locate, you know, create a campus?
Yeah, I got you.
Where we still can have the shared services between departments.
No, I just want to throw it
Easily.
in, you know, I have like a folder for future projects, and I want to throw it in there so it just doesn't get lost.
I just want to say one thing in that I feel like this is a whole new conversation for me. I don't know, are you aware of the idea of having to build or buy land?
No, I was thinking more along the lines of Michael's point about the comprehensive land. I would be more for a conserving land at some point, conservation district or something, but.
Well, the reason that I bring it up,
But this is
you know,
what
our highway department is maxed.
I understand that
In that
completely.
garage.
I'm just saying from my perspective, I wasn't aware that this was even a conversation.
Well, it wasn't from a budgetary standpoint.
Okay.
No,
He's introducing it as a concept.
Okay.
down the road.
I was just asking for the clarification for myself also, because I didn't know what the use was.
So that was good enough.
That's good.
Between Marty and I, there was a clarification.
Yeah,
All right.
very good.
All right, page 27, we have townwide research. This is expenditures that benefit the whole town, so it covers some of our legal fees that we're incurring, labor relations fees that we incur. So,
Okay.
in 2016, because we didn't have a line item under assessing for this, we put all the, our fight for our tax cert in that one line item. So that's why it's bumped up so high, so that's not the norm, so.
Okay.
And as you see, at this point, we're up to $11,000, so I bumped it up to 20 just to
Okay.
make sure we're okay, so.
And again, I'll talk about one of the things that has taken up a lot of my time and Patrick's time, and I'll also include Nikki, talking about those trainings for HR, working with Jackie Kelleher to really clean up a number of things, both culturally, et cetera. So, working with her has been a really good thing. So, I know it's an investment, but it was needed.
So what's the total department we need, Tim?
Which one, yeah?
Page
Cemetery.
27, bottom.
Oh, the budgetary provision, that's the reserve for recreation.
Recreation.
Yep.
And the one above that was the contractual expense, that's no longer.
No, so we
That
just
is-
want,
I was gonna get that one, that's my next one, Tom.
Oh, sorry.
That's the mausoleum.
I thought that's one we were on.
No, we were on
I'm sorry.
8030, now we're on Department 8810, that's a mausoleum. We've been advised by legal counsel not to budget anything in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're just gonna have that, but in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah, we have expenditures on it, but we just,
We'll probably have to.
Because we will be and continue to be in the process of seeking reimbursements
Yeah.
through negotiations and conversations with our state partners, Assemblyman Jones and Senator Little. So,
Excellent.
We budgeted what kind of claim ownership.
ownership.
yes.
oh yeah.
We don't want that.
Our hands are on it,
Yeah.
definitely.
Well, we don't want our hands on
We
anything.
don't.
No. Next page is our abandoned principal interest, which we paid off, the Caddo Park. We made a double payment this year,
Yeah, I saw that.
so we're done with that. So that's helping
Yeah.
take care of some of the reserve that we're having, so.
Yes.
So that worked out well.
You get a thank you from Clinton.
So we'll just go back to page 1, that's where the revenues start.
Okay.
As I said before, the Clinton County sales tax, we get their figure, so we allocate it between highway and general. On the recreation fees and park building rental, about midway down, we made 2 categories out of the one. Page 1, Marty,
Oh,
on the general
no
fund.
wonder I had trouble finding it.
So normally those are lumped together for recreational fees, but Mel wanted to break them out so she can get a better tracking of them. So they're broken out in here, and the budget's 15,000, previous year was 14,000, so. We're hoping with the rec track.
So the 9 and the 6 is what?
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully with that, my rec, the building usage, we're gonna have a better way to track it. So
Right,
that's why we
yeah.
wanted to break them out to see how we're gonna
Okay.
have that,
That was really the biggest thing.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else too major in here.
Patrick, just a question for the future. Interest on CDs, is there any other vehicles that we,
We are very
The law
limited
can
on
use-
what we can use. We can only use like Federal Reserve, Treasury, stuff, which is paying nothing right now.
okay.
I do talk to my bank consultants every month, and
Okay.
hit rates, so.
Okay.
CDs are actually starting to get to the point where we can invest in them. The problem with municipal CDs is the rate is not the same as personal because they have to collateralize everything. So it's a lot more cost than having a CD, so it's really low, so.
How come justice fines are down?
With the new justice coming in,
We don't expect to take it.
we anticipate that that person may or may not be
Used to
utilized.
be a high earner?
Well,
It's just a learning.
so there,
That's
so
what you
there's,
put that
here's,
way, though.
here's the thing, here's the thing that occurs though. So it's not even a judgment of, well, you might just say, well, won't the other justice be tapped? So won't that happen? You can use adjoining towns to bring people in. So Kevin, for example, right now, sometimes gets phone calls for Peru. Okay, so with the new justice coming in, the state police officer could call up Peru and just say, hey, I know this is a person that's been doing it for a while, so those may not necessarily get pipelined through the town for a period of time. So it's not a judgment on that. It may just culturally, they may make the swing
Yep.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
So,
They don't want to spend an inordinate amount of time in front of the rookie.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
And Kevin made that recommendation.
I was just gonna ask,
Yes.
Yes.
who is thinking like that? And
Yeah.
that's, I'm really grateful for whoever.
Yeah.
I figured it was you, Pat.
Yeah, and we asked
We were all,
questions.
actually, we were all on the same page.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah, I think
smart
so.
budgeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we asked that too, so this is cool.
Okay.
And there is training at the end of the, December, they're gonna go 4 weeks of training for justice court, so it's pretty intense, so,
And then, do they have to go back in February too? No?
yes, and they go back in
They
February.
have to go back in February, so whoever's doing that's gonna go two,
Yeah.
to 8 separate ones.
I thought it was 4
I
weekends.
think it's
or
4 weekends in December, 4 weekends or
I
something.
was informed it's a solid week in December, starting on December 3rd.
They may have changed it, so.
I'm not sure, that's what I was told, but I'm not,
I got that Thursday night.
I didn't look it up myself, so I don't know, so. That's what I was told. That's it for revenues, any other questions on that? Last but not least is ambulance.
Okay.
What if we started demanding credits?
So really, we're continue to be in a position where we're using 2 of the different districts. Morrisonville continues to manage a little bit differently. We've talked them down a little bit from where they wanted to go in their overall projections. Because of a partnership that they had before with CBPH, they used to be able to gain certain resources like Band-Aids and bandages and that type of stuff. That is no longer open to them, so they're having to incur those costs directly. But Patrick and I actually linked them up with a new resource. It's a, I don't think it's a consortium. Is it a consortium?
It is.
Yeah,
It's a national
okay.
consortium.
So we're hoping that that will have an effect on their bottom line moving forward, so.
Is that because it's been taken over by Vermont?
Yes.
Yeah, that's probably part of it, so. But ultimately, again, you know, they worked with us and poked and prodded a little bit. Not exactly, you know, at the optimal level that I would have liked to have been, but still better than where it was.
Yes.
Much better than where it was.
And I think
And Greg
they're-
was involved in some conversations and.
I think they're trying to work with Clinton County on some kind of shared services
Yep.
or supplies for all the ambulances throughout the county. so.
It sounds like a decent thing for have shared services for.
Yeah.
This is a complicated one though. Michael's really good at using the county or the committee structure to manage these things and negotiate. I appreciate you stepping in and kind of doing what has to be done when the committee is not always the most effective way.
I think with this particular one, there's 2 different models within a model. You know what I mean? Like, and that's just tough because CBPH and Morrisonville EMS are not the same thing. They're just not. They never will be. They can't be. So, but we're needing to find a way to still provide the services. But what I have appreciated about Mel, who works at Morrisonville and who I've had a lot of conversations with, is she accepts challenge and will constantly go back and say, okay, you know, yeah, we can't do that, but we can do this. well, I don't know if it's, we're still there yet. So she'll take that constructive criticism and really try to, and even look at the long term, say, we can't do it this year, but now let me put it in the hopper for, maybe in 6 months or a year, we can implement this type of thing. So they're working with us.
I think she understands the progressive business model as well. And the other, one thing that Pat and I had a conversation with in our initial meetings was, there has to be a profitable model for this business, for what they're doing, otherwise they shouldn't be operating.
Yeah, and this actually ties into, again, that conversation of shared services. Every town supervisor, mayor in Clinton County has talked about, we need to at least have the conversation about countywide EMS services. So, but the county, as, the level of government needs to be the one that takes that lead to, but I can, and I know you're shaking your head a little bit, Marty, but I've been really happy though. The county is stepping up to the table to have conversations that 2 years ago, they wouldn't even open the door. You would be out in the hallway banging, at least now they're opening the door and they're having some conversations.
And I think the reason some of that's happening, there's more people, there's down at the county, in the legislature, there's more people at the table in the discussion than there used to be. It used to be, it wasn't 3 men in a room, it was 2, And that's changed.
Well, I'll use Patty Waldron as an example. We have 3 county legislators, 3 of them. The only legislator that I hear from almost on a weekly basis is Patty Waldron. I mean, which is pretty phenomenal, and she's got a smaller section of the town.
Yeah.
So,
Prior to that, the previous person hardly ever had any contact with us.
I'm not going down that road. I'm just speaking for what it is, though, which is good.
Well, there's progress.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages.
We should do this again.
Says,
next year.
It is 11:45.
Pat loves this stuff,
Patrick.
Pat, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Great job.
Thank you for being the maestro
Great job.
of the orchestra.
Can I ask your opinion on one thing? Does this format, do you find value in it from,
I think it's great.
okay, counselors?
Yeah.
Value?
Yeah, I've always
I
thought
think
it was